The premiere episode of the new season opens with deeply tender images, showing that Jean has finally given birth and Cyclops couldn't be happier to start his family. Together, they have decided to name him Nathan Summers, the fruit of their true love, whom we all know in the present day as Cable. However, at this point in the storyline, the X-Men have completely vanished, and the estate they once called home now lies in total ruins. The only ones left together are Bishop and Forge, who find themselves stranded in the year 1997, desperately trying to figure out what happened to the rest of the team. Bishop has been analyzing the temporal anomalies that began surfacing right after the X-Men disappeared, and he has successfully tracked down two specific points in time that keep repeating. One is ancient Egypt, and the other is the 40th century, two of the darkest eras for mankind. But that is exactly where the mutants are trapped, and they must find a way to reach them. The main problem is that a single constant recurs across both eras, the presence of apocalypse. Therefore, they must split up. Bishop will travel to the past, while Forge jumps into the 40th century. Together, they launch an ambitious project to bring the X-Men back to the 90s. After stepping through the temporal portal, we see Forge arrive in the year 3960, only to face a world in complete ruins and a strange tower surrounded by a thick green gas that makes it incredibly hard to see. Before he can even process his surroundings, he is completely surrounded by armed robots that order him to surrender immediately under the authority of the Regent, Apocalypse. These rogue machines show no mercy, forcing Forge to strike first if he wants to survive. He draws his weapons and unleashes all his pent-up rage with every bullet, successfully taking down a couple of robots, though he remains severely outnumbered. When his ammo finally runs completely dry, he doesn't even have a split second to reload, so he decides to quickly dive for cover. He waits patiently for the patrol to pass him by, but luck isn't on his side. They spot him anyway, and just seconds later, they are on the verge of killing him when a massive blast of air erupts out of nowhere. The dust storm completely blinds the enemy, which is exactly what a mysterious hero needs to leap onto the robot's shoulders and rip them to shreds with his claws. At that moment, Forge realizes it's Wolverine, but he sports a brand new look, and his claws are no longer coated in adamantium, but made of pure bone. The storm had been triggered by Storm herself, who couldn't be happier to see Forge, welcoming him with a passionate kiss. He immediately tells her that he came to rescue them and brandishes the device that will allow them to return to their original timeline. But looking at his lover's face, he can clearly tell they aren't ready to leave just yet. This is when Forge realizes that Cyclops and Jean tracked down Nathan in this distant future, where their son is now a teenager, and they aren't willing to just pack up and walk away, as they desperately want to be a part of his life. Forge completely understands their intentions, knowing they just want to be good parents, but they still have no clue who or what sent them to this precise moment in time, and he reveals that these are crucial, defining moments in the life of Apocalypse. If they stay behind playing house, then Cable will never become the hardened soldier he is meant to be, which would be a massive loss for their cause. On the flip side, if they leave, they won't know if they were actually the key to defeating Apocalypse in this timeline. Ultimately, there are too many questions and very few answers. As they approach the Ascani base of operations, Jean begs him for just 24 hours, giving them a chance to say goodbye and figure out if their son's rebellion is truly on the right track. Right then, the scene shifts to reveal a massive graveyard of bodies from different species, all recently slaughtered by Apocalypse and his followers, whom he rules with an iron fist. A few seconds later, Ozymandias appears, bringing his regent some excellent news. They have finally located a body, a perfect vessel for him to host, so he won't have to endure the agonizing struggles of regeneration. The target is a telepath. He is a young boy whom the Ascani are trying to shape into their savior, and the scouts have reported that they are moving through the northern sector. Upon hearing this, Apocalypse commands his troops to bring the boy to him immediately, no matter the cost. That telepath is none other than Nathan himself, whose mother is currently teaching him how to control his powers and use them to suppress his pain, making his cybernetic arm look like a normal one. Afterward, Morph drops by to invite him to play a game of baseball, allowing the kid to forget for a few minutes about the brutal war they are trapped in. This gives his parents some breathing room to debate the boy's future, questioning if he is truly destined to become the warrior who defeats Apocalypse, or if they are just placing a crushing burden on his shoulders. At that moment, they start thinking they should tell everyone the truth, that they are his actual parents and not just random time travelers, and inform them that they are taking him back with them. They just need to convince Forge that this is the right move and persuade the Ascani that Nathan is not their messiah. That night, Cyclops visits the Mother Ascani to ask where Nathan's prophecy came from, who wrote it, or if it is all just a bunch of lies she made up to give hope to a desperate people. But that conversation reveals absolutely nothing. The Mother Ascani just speaks in riddles, offering nothing useful that could confirm their son is truly destined to do what they claim. Shortly after, Morph shows up and tells Forge that Nathan has vanished, and his parents are gone too. Right at that moment, we catch up with them, and Jean is having a telepathic conversation with Cyclops, telling him they won't gamble Nathan's destiny on a time travel lottery, nor the fact that he is supposed to become Cable. But it turns out Nathan was eavesdropping on their conversation. He already has the ability to do that, and he demands to know who Cable is. Before they can answer his question, a dozen robots ambush them, unleashing a hailstorm of bullets. Fortunately, Jean manages to drop a protective shield that only lets Cyclops' optic blasts through as he begins tearing them apart. The main problem is that the robots aren't alone. They are being led by an elite squad under Apocalypse's direct orders, featuring highly powerful beings who refuse to leave without Nathan. Ichizumi unleashes a massive cloud of pestilence upon them, while Sanjar channels his power into Cyclops and spreads a terminal disease through their bodies, inflicting excruciating pain. Neither of them can do anything to counter this triple assault, especially when the sonic waves from the Fourth Horseman strike, shattering the protective shield. This allows Ozymandias to step forward, confronting Nathan and telling him he needs to come along quietly. Once the rest of the team realizes they've been abducted, they immediately turn to the Mother Ascani, who shows them a blueprint of Apocalypse's fortress, which is guarded by an energy barrier that incinerates anything unauthorized. The only way inside is to intercept the train carrying Nathan and be on board when it crosses the threshold. According to the prophecy, the boy is destined to destroy the villain right inside his seat of power, meaning the final showdown will happen there. Looking at the schematics, Forge points out that the train travels at Mach 3, and jumping onto an object moving at that speed is going to be incredibly dangerous unless they can somehow match its velocity. This is where the Mother Ascani decides to reveal to Storm that in her original timeline, she controls far more than just the weather. She controls the cosmos and can generate solar flares, which will provide the exact energy needed to power the engines. Now, she is about to share the secret to unlocking that immense power. On top of that, she confesses that it was her own power that brought them here in the first place. She can see through time and tear open temporal rifts. When she saw that the X-Men were destined to die in their own era, she chose to save them, trusting they would be the ultimate solution to ending this brutal war. She sent one team to the future to help Nathan become the man he needs to be to defeat Apocalypse, and the other to the past to prevent the mutant named En-Sabah Nur from ever becoming Apocalypse at all. Aboard the speeding train, his parents give Nathan the strength to concentrate and push his powers to the absolute limit, allowing him to break free from his restraints and channel enough energy to shatter his inhibitor collar. But before he can reach the control panel, a pair of robots ambush them. Fortunately, the boy destroys his parents' collars, and they instantly repeat their previous strategy, dropping a protective shield that only lets Cyclops' optic blasts through to obliterate the robots in a flash. Following the Mother Ascani's advice, Storm risks her own life and summons the power of the sun to unleash the solar flares she desperately needs. Holding onto a spark of hope in the deep darkness, she successfully unlocks a whole new level of power that she never possessed before, making her virtually unstoppable. These solar flares charge the ship's energy panels in an instant, allowing the team to match the train's speed and even surpass it, ensuring they catch up to their companions in mere seconds. With their speed perfectly synchronized, they manage to board the train at the exact moment Jean and Cyclops are facing off against the Horsemen of Apocalypse in an all-out brawl. Storm quickly shifts from channeling solar flares to unleashing a freezing wind that completely ice-locks her enemies, giving Morph the perfect opening to use his powers and take them down. Even Nathan completely blindsides his parents by using his telekinetic abilities to snatch a weapon from one of the robots and unload its entire arsenal against them, forcing Ozymandias to flee the scene after being cornered. The X-Men call out to the Mother Ascani to get them off the train immediately, but she uses her power to accelerate it even further. She knows her own mission might be over, but Nathan's is just beginning, and she sends them racing straight toward the gates of Apocalypse's fortress so they can finish what they started. Unfortunately for them, Apocalypse escapes, as he hasn't regenerated enough to fight them yet, and he vows to take his revenge in the 20th century, where they are far more vulnerable. Suddenly, a massive crowd of people begins pouring out, and the heroes realize they have accidentally freed thousands of enslaved men and women. Looking at the scene, Jean and Cyclops see clearly that their son is called to lead these people, and now that his hidden powers are unlocked, they are certain he can handle this challenge and so much more. The moment Nathan places his hand inside the ring of power, his arm completely transforms, and the scene flashes forward into the distant future. There, we finally see him fully realized as Cable, a warrior who has spent his entire life hunting down Apocalypse, though the villain always manages to resurface in a different point in time. Serving under his command are Psylocke and Archangel, both locked and loaded for their next assignment. The move Cable is ready to make now is to recruit new allies, handing them a classified file packed with potential candidates. Finally, the second episode brings us straight back to 1997, where a group of young mutants is seen fleeing through the woods from Sentinelas, desperately trying to reach the place they once called home. But finding it in total ruins, they realize there is absolutely nothing left for them. Terrified and left with absolutely no other choice, the young mutants decide to surrender. However, when they look closely at their pursuers, it turns out they aren't Sentinelas at all, but rather the final remnants of the X-Factor strike team. This is all that remains of the mutant population, now forced to work for the government to resolve global crises. Essentially, they are treated as state slaves, and this is their only way to avoid ending up marooned on a deserted island, monitored 24 hours a day. Meanwhile, Jubilee is busy laying low, though she isn't doing a very good job at it, since Cable manages to track her down easily. He offers her a spot on his crew to hunt down Apocalypse, who has been flying under the radar for quite some time. They've finally locked onto a fresh lead. One of those high-ranking horsemen, who goes by the name of War, has just resurfaced, and they need to seize the opportunity to tail him before things spin completely out of control. Before they can even give him a straight answer, Cable cuts in and clarifies that he isn't looking for sidekicks or heroes. They are soldiers who will follow orders, and he won't tolerate any whining. He warns them that governments will hunt them down and no place will be safe, but that is the steep price they must pay for their own kind. With a smile, Jubilee tells him she's in, and seconds later, we flash to Brazil, where the team is currently carrying out a mission. However, they have arrived right in the middle of Carnival, and the massive crowds packing the streets make things incredibly difficult. From the street, Jubilee informs them that she has just spotted War heading north. Unfortunately, the target manages to see them and bolts, but thanks to Sunspot, they manage to catch up and land a solid blow until Psylocke finally reaches them. She handles most of the combat, but thanks to the kids, she gets the perfect opening to use her power and ensure that War crashes to the ground. Now, he is their prisoner. Once they have him restrained, Psylocke enters his mind and manages to see a vision of War delivering a casket to Apocalypse, who congratulates him on his work and promises that very soon the entire world will be theirs. After War is no longer of any use to them, Cable hands his weapon over to Archangel so he can get his revenge and shoot War right in the head, since they have already obtained what they wanted from him. Jubilee tries to understand why they are doing this, suggesting they could call the authorities or turn him into someone, but Cable coldly tells them that once they become horsemen, there is no salvation left, and this is the only way out. Before she can even argue the point, a gunshot rings out right behind her. Archangel has ended War's life, serving as a brutal reminder to the kids that they are soldiers now, and this is how things get done. Once they are aboard the jet, Jubilee makes it crystal clear that if he wants her to stay on the team, there needs to be less killing, arguing that War could have still been useful. When Cable snaps back that he's the one calling the shots, she hits him with the fact that Psylocke saw diamonds in War's mind. There is only one telepath tied to diamonds, Emma Frost, and they are going to pay her a visit, but he has to promise they won't kill her. Emma is perfectly willing to cooperate. After all, she's just a broker. She takes her cut and gets the job done. She explains that War wanted to smuggle a shipment into Switzerland, but before handing over the exact coordinates, she demands something in return. The squad touches down in Switzerland shortly after, and Emma is seen tagging along with them. Inside, they discover technology far more advanced than what was used to create Archangel, but the crates are completely empty, meaning whatever they came to do here is already finished and they've cleared out. Before the team can pull back to chase other leads, Emma reveals they aren't alone, and X-Factor shows up to place them under arrest under orders from the United States government. It turns out Emma sold them out in exchange for her own amnesty. They won't touch a single hair on her head, a deal she secured solely by luring them to this location so they could be prosecuted and thrown behind bars. Cable brands them Uncle Sam's mutant bootlickers and fiercely declares they will never surrender to a bunch of fools called X-Factor, prompting Archangel to strike at that exact moment. One by one, however, the members of X-Force end up overpowered by X-Factor, who stand ready to deport them straight to the United States to face trial. Luckily, Jubilee finds a way for them to make a break for it. She grabs a live wire and triggers a massive explosion of flashing lights, distracting X-Factor just long enough. Yet, before they can clear the hangar, she gets caught, forcing Psylocke to knock Sunspot out cold so he won't be captured along with her. Shortly after, Jubilee is put into interrogation and fitted with an inhibitor collar to make her talk and expose Cable's plans so they can bring the rest to justice. Polaris tries using their shared history as X-Men to soften the girl up, but it doesn't work. Alex ultimately ends up leading her down to a holding cell where she witnesses dozens of mutants locked away simply for practicing what the professor taught them. Meanwhile, back in the air, Sunspot begs Cable to turn the jet around right now to rescue his girlfriend, but Cable shuts him down, stating they have a crucial mission they must see through. However, the boy manages to make him see that she was the one who showed them exactly where to go, and it wouldn't be fair to finish the mission at the expense of their own people. Right as that is happening aboard the jet, Polaris slips into the holding area and frees Jubilee. She removes the inhibitor collar and warns her she has exactly 5 minutes, making it clear this is a one-time favor for the sake of their shared past and won't ever happen again. Immediately, the girl uses her powers to trigger a total blackout across the entire facility, and when armed soldiers show up, she blasts some appropriate background music to start taking them down one by one, using her energy to spark pure panic among the guards. The moment she gets her hands on a military radio, she quickly contacts her team and tells them she needs an immediate extraction route because she has extra cargo. She wants to bust out of there, revealing that she is liberating every single prisoner. While Jubilee thoroughly beats down the guards, she buys enough time for the kids and the rest of the inmates to scramble up to the flight deck, where Cable is already waiting to get them out of there as fast as possible. Archangel takes care of wiping out the defensive turrets, allowing the jet to take off without a hitch. The only problem is that Jubilee doesn't make it off the deck before the plane climbs, so she takes a leap of faith into the open sky, trusting that her boyfriend Sunspot will catch her, and that's exactly what happens. That night, Val Cooper goes on national television to announce that the X-Force squad members are officially fugitives of the state, offering a massive reward to anyone who can provide key information leading directly to their capture. While piloting the jet, Cable flashes back to the moment he sent the X-Men packing into the past. That was the very first piece of advice his computer gave him, since defeating Apocalypse in this timeline was merely the beginning, and they absolutely needed to be on the ground in the past for the next stage. Meanwhile, the third episode kicks off with the team arriving in that ancient era, where they end up being rescued by a mysterious fighter who introduces himself as Sabah Nur, leaving them deeply in his debt. But before diving further into this part of the storyline, we check back in with the remaining crew. Forge has no clue why Bishop hasn't returned with the rest of the X-Men yet, leaving them just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. On top of that, the signal from their tracking devices is completely dead, meaning Forge has no way to jump to their location, leaving them totally stranded. Meanwhile, in the year 3000 BC, Sabah Nur is getting some serious life lessons from Magneto, who tells him that just because he was born a slave doesn't mean he shouldn't crave absolute power, since being the very first of his kind with such abilities gives him limitless potential. In the following scene, we see a massive horde of desert raiders closing in on the city, as their pharaoh orders all available troops to deploy to the main gate to halt the imminent assault. Outside the citadel, the slaves endure brutal punishment from the soldiers, who lash them with energy whips to force them to work harder. But now, the horn of war has sounded, and every single soldier is summoned immediately to defend their pharaoh, the great Ramatut. When the camera cuts back to the desert raiders, it becomes clear that Sabah Nur is their undisputed leader, and he has arrived with the sole purpose of freeing his brothers from the Pharaoh's iron grip. Perched on a nearby ridge, Magneto watches the events unfold, having decided to gamble the X-Men's fate on the man who is destined to become Apocalypse. The Pharaoh's technology is incredibly sophisticated, far beyond anything from their own era, and it might just hold the key to sending them back to their proper timeline. Charles warns him that he is playing with fire and forces he cannot possibly control. En-Sabah-Nur might be their only ticket home right now, but once he gains absolute power, there will be no holding him back, and they will utterly fail in their mission to stop him before he turns into Apocalypse. Despite the warning, Magneto genuinely believes he can help guide the young mutant down a different path, given that he was the very first of their kind. And just maybe, he isn't inherently prehistoric bound to become a force of total destruction. However, the moment the order to charge is given, hundreds of mechanical soldiers buried beneath the sand are exposed, emerging in a flash to completely surround En-Sabah-Nur's forces and rapidly cutting them to pieces. The last thing the army general sees is the mechanical troops seemingly crushing the mutant, leading him to claim an instant victory. Seconds later, though, the city gates are blown to pieces, and En-Sabah-Nur emerges from the wreckage completely unscathed, locked and loaded to keep the battle going. With incredible speed and fighting skills, En-Sabah-Nur rips through everything that comes at him. He even manages to halt a massive mammoth dead in its tracks with his bare hands, lifting it up with raw strength to swing it through the air and smash through one of the fortress gates all by himself. Once the young mutant gets the perfect opening to take the army general's head off, he looks over at Magneto, who is trusting him to make the right call, and he delivers. He spares the general's life, choosing instead to shatter the slave's collars. Seeing this, Magneto turns to Charles and notes that maybe all is not lost just yet. He immediately sends the team to salvage the wrecked androids so they can use that advanced technology to their advantage. Nightcrawler quickly gathers up all the tech, transporting it straight to Beast's makeshift lab, where he is already using every single salvaged chip and component to piece their temporal portal back together so they can finally return to their own timeline. Unfortunately, every single attempt they make to power up the temporal portal fails because they simply don't have enough juice. Thus, they need something far more powerful and advanced than the basic robots used to defend the city. But to get their hands on something like that, they have to trust En-Sabah-Nur to make it all the way to the Pharaoh. According to Magneto, though, what they did today was the right call. Tearing down the first line of defense and abducting the army general was the smartest move. But Baal, En-Sabah-Nur's first officer, doesn't really see eye to eye with them on that. He believes they could have crushed the Pharaoh right then and there, failing to realize the technology the ruler could deploy against them, or how many lives would have been lost. Baal tells his leader that he has until tomorrow's moon to make a final decision. After that, General Logos is going to lose his head, whether it's his destiny or not. That night, Magneto confesses to Charles that his master plan goes beyond just acting as En-Sabah-Nur's wise advisor. He wants to help him become the ultimate leader of mutantkind, so he can rewrite history in perfect harmony with humanity. He knows that every single chapter lived over thousands of years has been written in blood, and now they have a unique window of opportunity to rewrite history from scratch. Magneto begs his old friend to back him up. Together, they can make this happen and return to a world just like Charles always dreamed of, living in peace and harmony, with humans and mutants coexisting as one, and he is absolutely positive that with Charles's help and mental abilities, they can pull it off. But the real question is whether En-Sabah-Nur's rage can truly be contained, and if he can actually become the leader that everyone like him desperately needs. Down below, their leader is interrogating General Logos, who mockingly taunts him about how his mother died in chains. At that exact moment, En-Sabah-Nur tries to take his head off in a fit of rage, but Magneto cuts in just in time and stops his blade midair. He tells him that Charles wants to speak with the prisoner first, as they can extract the information they need. However, that won't even be necessary, because Logos willingly spills everything. The Pharaoh has unearthed a lost temple packed with far more advanced cosmic technology, which will make his mechanical troops look like simple toys. Not only that, but it will transform their mortal Pharaoh into a literal star god, ultimately bringing the entire world to its knees. Hearing this, Charles can't help himself and tries to break into the general's mind, but he walks right into a psychic trap that drags him deep into the quicksand of his own subconscious until he hits his limit. Still, he catches a brief, terrifying glimpse of what the future holds for them. It is complete and utter destruction, a near demonic power that is just waiting to be found. At that very moment, the team heads back to their hidden lab, but upon arrival, they are shocked to discover that Baal already knows absolutely everything they have been doing behind his back. They have been using the very technology they want to destroy to build something else. Feeling completely betrayed, Sabah-Nur snaps and decapitates General Logos right in front of Magneto, sentencing the heroes to prison. But Baal has a better idea. He orders his men to execute them on the spot, forcing the X-Men to fight tooth and nail for their lives. The only reason they make it out alive is thanks to a mysterious warrior who had been laying low inside Baal's own ranks. The moment General Logos' head hits the floor, it's revealed that he was a machine all along, and the Pharaoh has been tracking his position this entire time. Now that he knows the exact coordinates of Sabah-Nur's secret base, he launches a direct assault. The mysterious warrior turns out to be Bishop, who quickly hands out the temporal devices so everyone can jump back to their own timeline. They only have a matter of seconds to pull it off, as a massive energy blast unleashed by the Pharaoh splits the sky in two, tearing through solid rock as if it were nothing but paper and completely obliterating everything Sabah-Nur had built. Thousands of newly freed, innocent lives are wiped out in an instant. Whether the X-Men manage to survive is a total mystery, and we'll have to wait a week to find out. So make sure to leave a like and a comment if you want to see episode 4 on the channel. A week has passed, and the 4th episode of X-Men 97 arrives packed with intense intrigue. Did the team survive that massive attack on Nur's lair, or did the Pharaoh finally get his way after all? That is a question we will answer a bit later, as the episode starts right away, with Nur standing amid the ashes, holding the bodies of the people who followed him, and harboring a growing, inevitable rage inside. Right behind him are the X-Men, who are completely safe thanks to a powerful shield created by Magneto, and who now have a lot of explaining to do to a mutant who could easily cut everyone's heads off just for kicks. A few seconds later, Nur stands up furiously, grabs his large sword, and heads straight toward the X-Men. But Professor X steps in and begs him to let them explain the situation. They are travelers and do not belong to this era, but everything has a logical explanation, and they only ask for a little time to make him understand what is really happening in their world. While Professor X risks everyone's lives in a private talk with Nur, Magneto and the rest of the heroes must wait for his decision, and unfortunately, they won't be around to protect him. If for some strange reason the young man decided to chop off his head, they wouldn't be able to do absolutely anything about it. As for the rest of them, they are arguing over whether Eric's decisions were actually the right ones, but Rogue is going to back him up. She knows very well that he has good intentions, and if his plan works, they could return to a future where everyone who perished in Genosha is still alive. At that exact moment, a vote takes place among those present, those who want to go back home versus those who agree to stay and follow Magneto's plan. But he makes the choice for everyone. He uses his power to rip the bracelet away from Bishop and destroys it, leaving them all stranded here. He then assures them that the hidden temple the Pharaoh is searching for holds the energy required to repair the bracelet. So now, everyone is forced into this situation together. They will be able to go back once Nur is on the right track, and not a moment before. Luckily for everyone, Nur is willing to listen, has lowered his sword, and will allow the professor to enter his mind. The first thing Charles can clearly see in the boy's mind is how his mother abandoned him in the desert, and how after that, he was chained up and judged for being different, even sold and cruelly humiliated. Every night, he slept completely alone in the cold, because nobody wanted to go near him, but his immense strength quickly made him a favorite of the pharaohs, not because they wanted to be around him, but because they used him to build their great pyramids as the most useful slave of all. At the end of his journey through Nur's mind, Charles manages to see a constellation, one he had already seen before in the pharaoh's mind, and now they know that the hidden temple is located right beneath it on the map. Having convinced Nur to back them up, the team sets off on the long journey toward that place. But some remain skeptical, like Bishop and Nightcrawler, who believe that gambling the fate of humanity on just one man is way too risky, and altering the course of time never turns out well. After several days on camelback and cold nights across the desert, the constellation they are looking for appears right ahead in the sky, and at the exact moment they enter its line of sight, the hidden temple appears, so they decide to rest there for the night. That night, the mere thought of sleeping doesn't cross Rogue's mind, as she sits in front of the campfire and tries to convince herself one more time that giving her vote to Magneto was the right decision for the group. A few seconds later, Noor appears before her, confessing that sleep is something he hasn't experienced in a very long time, and asking her if she is excited about being able to return home. Rogue confesses to him that she would be more excited if someone were waiting for her, but unfortunately, that's not the case. She lost a very important person in her life, and this trip promised to bring him back, but now she doesn't know what to think. She then asks Noor if he was ever in love, and he begins his painful story by saying that his mother, the person who was supposed to love him, abandoned him in the desert. Since that terrible day, everything has been a loss for him, and he is only used to pain. So no, he doesn't know what that feels like. And Rogue walks away, telling him she hopes he gets to experience it someday, for the sake of all humanity. At the same time that's happening, the Pharaoh is putting on a massive helmet that causes a huge turbulence that even Charles can feel, waking up startled. So he uses his powers to do a quick scan that allows him to see a hidden chamber inside the temple, where time and reality are drastically altered. There, Pharaoh Ramatut is waiting for him, telling him this isn't the first time they've met. In fact, he has many well-known names: Kang, Nathaniel, Victor. In every single era, there is always a Charles Xavier, and there is always a Ramatut. It turns out the temple has the power to erase timelines, and Ramatut has managed to live through many eras and conquer many of them too, so they are facing a common enemy, and it would be best for them to broker a truce. However, that means sacrificing his team and Noor, something Charles is never willing to do. A second later, Charles ends up being kicked out of the temple and wakes up startled once again. There, he manages to see Noor, ready to continue the journey, and in the next scene, we see the whole team cautiously entering the sacred temple. There, the team manages to find alien technology that looks strangely familiar, and according to Beast's calculations, this place is about 10,000 years old, though obviously not from their original era. In the middle of the temple stands a giant titan, whose eyes share the exact shape of the Gardener constellation they followed to get here at night. But the strangest part is that Beast begins to detect life signatures of celestial origin. This is exactly the kind of pure energy they need to get out of there, right after repairing the bracelet that Magneto ruined. Bishop asks Beast to guide him to that place right away, and Magneto knows perfectly well what his intentions are: to get them out of there and completely forget about the plan they have. So he proposes they split up. Some will go for the energy, and others will go after the Pharaoh. That way, Bishop won't be able to take everyone away before his own purpose is fulfilled. But at this exact moment, Noor confesses to Magneto that he doesn't trust him. From the very beginning, everything he said was a lie, so that's why he prefers Charles's company. The best Magneto can do now is honor his promise to his peers and take them home. But as far as his destiny with Noor goes, the position is no longer available to him. Against all odds, Bishop decides to leave the fate of the bracelet in Beast's hands and walks alongside the professor, who follows Noor closely, while the rest quickly leave in search of that mystical energy that promises to bring them back home. As the teams split up, we get a very clear look at just how colossal the temple is and the giant titan resting inside it. The strangest part of all is that some sections of the temple look extremely old, but as Beast gets closer and closer to the energy, the team gets a strong feeling that they have seen this before. And when they finally manage to reach a control panel, that's when Beast realizes what is actually going on. They have already been here, but not in this era, rather in their own, revealing to the team that they are aboard the starship created by mythical beings from beyond the stars. When the team realizes this, the entire room lights up completely, and the control panel displays strange glyphs on the walls, activating an advanced AI that immediately greets the team. However, that is not good news, since Beast perfectly remembers that in their time, this ship was a weapon used by Apocalypse. At that exact moment, we cut back to Noor and the rest, who have reached the central chamber, where they can clearly see images on the walls of Apocalypse, the ultra-powerful being the boy is destined to become. Bishop thinks it's extremely strange that Noor is guiding them with so much confidence, as if he already knew this place from before, and he confesses that it's strange to him too, but he feels as if something superior were guiding him. This is where Charles notices something bizarre on the walls, where he manages to see not only Noor, but also himself, Magneto, and the rest of the X-Men, as if in an ascension ceremony that is possibly about to take place. At that exact moment, Noor realizes that he can see his future, his present, and everything fades fate has in store for him on the walls. Realizing this, Charles uses his mental power to tell Eric to hurry up since things are about to go terribly wrong. Once Noor finds out that they have come not to help him, but to stop him, the battle lines are clearly drawn, and Bishop immediately draws his weapon to complete the mission's objective, one way or another. But Bishop's shots can only tickle Noor, who quickly knocks him down and mercilessly throws him into the void, from which he won't be returning anytime soon. Right after that, he grabs the professor by the neck and admits that he tried really hard to shape him like his X-Men, but he also said that Noor would have the power to decide his own destiny, and that is exactly what he is doing now, choosing to become Apocalypse. With an evil laugh, Noor walks away and keeps moving toward the center of the machine, where he is welcomed by a new kind of cosmic energy, repeating over and over again that he has been the one and only, the fittest to survive. A strange kind of sand begins to rise from the floor, channeling for a few seconds and creating a massive metallic head shaped like a doorway, inviting him to step inside immediately. Charles tries to beg him to resist the dark force pulling him in, but it's a bit too late for Noor to believe him. They have been lying to him this whole time, and that is what has led him to fail. Before Noor can enter the chamber and touch the energy crystal, Rogue appears out of nowhere and lands a brutal punch that sends him flying far away. The rest of the X-Men arrive a few seconds later, and Charles sadly confesses to his friend that they have failed. However, Eric tells him that they still have a chance. Maybe they didn't manage to convince him to take a different path, but he is not yet the invincible villain he is in their time. Noor emerges from the void a few seconds later and fiercely lunges at the group. At that moment, Bishop charges a massive amount of energy from his chest and shoots at him, but once again his attacks are completely useless, and he gets beaten up. Magneto is next, using everything he has to try and stop him, but Noor delivers a headbutt so hard it knocks him out instantly. He then grabs his body by the neck and tosses him away like a simple bag of trash. Eric is thrown with so much force that he hits a statue and can't get back up. As for the others, Noor decides to completely ignore them and walk back toward the sanctuary to fulfill his destiny. However, Rogue and Nightcrawler are still left, and they are fully prepared to stop him. The boy teleports right behind Noor's back and manages to pull him a good distance away from the sanctuary. But at that moment, the villain tightly grabs him by the wrist and breaks all his bones, managing to catch him by his cape and then slam him against the ground. The blow is so devastating that the boy can't do anything, and Rogue also takes a direct hit to the chest, causing her to drop to the ground immediately and not get back up. Now that there is no one left to stop him, Noor jumps back toward the sanctuary to fulfill his final destiny. After placing his hand on the energy stone, it begins to overload so intensely that no one can get close to it, and a few seconds later, a massive wave of pure energy sweeps across all of Egypt. The next thing Noor can see is the Titan speaking to him, telling him that all creation is born from destruction. Every end brings a beginning, and that is why, from this exact moment on, Noor will be the end of things. Until the end of time, entire armies and constellations will dream of his death. He will be cursed and feared, but all of creation must crash against the eternal shore. A few seconds later, when he accepts the bond, the power rock shatters into a million pieces, and they fly toward his body, building the trademark armor we all know very well. Beast appears a few seconds later to tell her it's time to get out of there, but Rogue is fully determined to stay and defeat Noor in this time. However, they just don't have the strength, and the only thing they have done is make things worse. Now Apocalypse doesn't just exist. He knows perfectly well that the X-Men tried to stop him before he fulfilled his final destiny, and that is not something he will let slide so easily. Tired of all this, Bishop orders them to put on the bracelets, but some do not agree with this hasty decision, so Magneto has to step in. He has already dragged them into this madness long enough, and it is time for them to get out of here. Using his powers, Magneto not only puts the bands on his teammates, but uses them to drag them toward the portal and send them back to their original time. The only problem is that Charles clings to his cape, delaying his mission. A second later, a huge explosion of pure energy occurs, and Apocalypse steps out of the chamber to face Magneto and Charles, who unfortunately did not make it into the portal in time. From the cloud of gas, Apocalypse emerges charged with energy and protected by a massive shield that prevents the X-Men from doing anything. And not only that, Noor can alter his height as he pleases, and he has full control of the ship, managing to fire up the engines and proclaiming that the Pharaoh will be the first to feel his wrath. As the ship rises, all the pyramids and the rock that had surrounded it for thousands of years begin to shatter, and even the sphinxes themselves turn to dust as the ship ascends, finally revealing its colossal size. But the ship isn't just big, it's also fast, and it will take only a few seconds to reach the pharaoh, whose fate is already completely sealed, or at least that's how it seems, since Magneto decides to make one last desperate attempt to appeal to Noor's reason. However, he is convinced that violence is the path to a new era of prosperity, and he turns his entire arm into a giant drill to pierce the shield protecting Magneto and make him pay for his lies. Just as the shield is about to collapse, Charles appears and uses his powers to give the villain painful visions, using the mother who abandoned him against him to remind him of that traumatic childhood moment and push him back. Unfortunately, Apocalypse's power is so immense that he breaks free from the vision in a split second and lunges at Charles, promising to make him pay dearly for his betrayal. Before he can get to him, Magneto steps in and hurls a dozen metal swords at him, which shatter upon simple contact with the villain's skin. Incapable of hurting the boy, Magneto lifts Charles into the air and sends him to the control room so he can stop the attack. Whatever it takes, he will buy him all the available time. Charles manages to reach the AI, controlling the ship, and urgently demands that it cancel the attack orders. But he has no access whatsoever, and everything points to it being way too late. Seeing the ship approach, the Pharaoh realizes that Noor is no longer a part of this world, and that what is coming at full speed is Apocalypse himself. So he clearly notices that this era is no longer his to conquer, and prepares to flee. This is where the Pharaoh summons a time ship, and we see him take off the disguise he was wearing and put on the real helmet of Kang the Conquistador. A few seconds later, the ship completely vanishes, and the Pharaoh escapes from this timeline. Back in the battle, Apocalypse cruelly mocks Magneto, telling him he can't believe how he could have thought he was a prophet, as he now fails to realize that his end has already arrived. A second later, he fires a massive energy beam at him, which Magneto's shield might not be able to stop this time around. Charles manages to recover quickly from that injury and tries to launch another attack on Apocalypse's mind, but the villain repels it and strikes back, meaning that no mental attack will work from now on. What happens next is seeing Apocalypse give the ultimate order for the ship to destroy the entire city. The powerful energy beam fired by the ship completely obliterates everything the Pharaoh tried to build. Aboard the ship, Apocalypse tells his enemies that he will make something useful out of them and promises to turn Charles into a horseman. However, Eric isn't ready to stop, channeling his power to the absolute maximum and wrapping Apocalypse in a vast amount of corrugated metal that stacks piece upon piece. In just a few moments, Apocalypse becomes a massive mass of iron, and Magneto uses it to push him away from them, sending him as far as he possibly can, while revealing to his friend that he is gravely injured on the floor. But there is no time for him. Every living being in the city will be completely wiped out in the next few seconds, and there has to be something they can do to stop it. Outside, the massive supernova that destroyed the Pharaoh's castle begins to create a small black hole that is sucking in everything around it, growing bigger with each passing moment, with every single second. The bad news is that the ship only obeys Apocalypse, and they will have to find another way to save the city. At that exact moment, Eric says goodbye to his old friend and tells him to honor his memory with actions, not tears. Before leaving, Magneto surrounds Charles with a metal shield to protect him from the debris, and then heads out to the surface, where chaos is spreading through the hearts of all the villagers, who are witnessing a massive eye of destruction swallowing everything they own. Before it's too late, Magneto uses his power to create a huge shield around the eye, trying to make it collapse into itself. At that very instant, we see how the iron capsule he created containing Charles ends up landing far away from the city, completely out of harm's way. The last thing Charles can see is the eye getting smaller and smaller as it moves away from the city, rising into the air. And a few seconds later, Magneto sacrifices himself to pull the starship and crash it right into the eye of ultimate destruction. After a massive explosion of energy, Magneto is sent flying into the desert, and Charles cannot reach him because Apocalypse appears, saying that Eric thought he was a teacher, but isn't even worthy of learning a simple lesson. That is why the people he loves will be his downfall. With a steady stride, Apocalypse reaches Magneto and grabs him by the skull. He then tells Charles to do what he always does, to enter his mind and tell him that everything will be fine, to lie to him just like he lied to him. And a few seconds later, he lifts him up with his hand and suddenly places the barrel of his weapon against his back. The seconds the massive energy cannon takes to charge up are enough for us to clearly see Magneto's bones and organs, right before the huge blast of energy shatters his body into pieces. In the end, the only thing left is his helmet and Charles's tears, knowing he could do nothing to save his best friend. The next thing Apocalypse does is walk toward Charles and place his foot on his head. But a second later, he repeats the greatest lesson Eric ever left him, telling him that only a coward takes pleasure in stepping on ants. So he moves his foot aside and lets Charles survive alone. The team returns a few hours later, and Bishop can only find Charles alone in the sand, deeply grieving and shedding tears for his friend. So he places his hand on his shoulder and takes him back to the 90s, ending the episode with the tragic death of one of the greatest X-Men to have ever lived. The fifth episode of X-Men 97 is finally here. After a little week's break, we're going to let Ensa Bagnur's story rest for now and head to another timeline where the action never stops. Get ready, this episode hits hard. The first thing we see is how Magneto has declared war on the whole planet, attacking those who are like him and trapping them with metal. The only one who managed to get close enough was Logan, who stabbed him right in the ribs, but unfortunately he didn't finish the job, and Magneto unleashed his fury on him, ripping all the adamantium out of his body and tearing his flesh down to the bone. A pretty intense start, honestly. Guepardo was left in critical condition, and while fighting for his life, he kept repeating Jane's name over and over until the story finally jumps forward a bit, and we see the version who was left with bone claws welcoming Forge in the future timeline. A really sad moment for the fans. But before officially starting the episode, we see a scene where Guepardo, after recovering from his wounds, met with Captain America, who handed him the Weapon X file. The episode is titled Weapon X, Lies, and DVDs, and it starts exactly with the new team that was formed, Logan, aboard a helicopter. The team includes Morph, his brother Sabretooth, a couple of old friends, Maverick and Kane, and an ex-girlfriend named Yuriko. A weird team, but a functional one. The guy's plan is to destroy Dr. Cornelius's lab, and with it, everything related to Weapon X. The only problem is that when the guys manage to reach the area near the lab, the instruments start failing, and a few seconds later, the helicopter's wing explodes, the result of a pretty suspicious collision, like with a flock of birds. Everything gets complicated really fast. As you'd expect from a disaster like this, the team ends up crashing down in the middle of nowhere. When Morph wakes up, he discovers the first fatal casualty. Kane has fallen into a tree and been impaled, so he's not going to be much help now. Maverick shows up a few seconds later, along with Yuriko, but there's no sign of Logan anywhere. What they can clearly see are the culprits of the accident, a bunch of birds like crows, but a lot uglier, whose blood is glowing green, and it's clear this wasn't an act of nature. With no other option, the guys decide to walk through the forest to look for clues and find the rest of the team. But a few seconds later, Maverick hears something coming from a pile of branches that looks like a cave, and when he tries to check the spot, he's attacked by a huge polar bear that looks like it's mutated. The huge animal attacks them hard, and Morph has no choice but to turn into Sabretooth to even out the fight. Even though Yuriko stabs it, the huge animal doesn't give an inch, and it's clear they need help, or both of them will join Maverick in the next world. What a savage fight, by the way. Luckily, Logan shows up with his brother, and even though they've never worked well as a team, they manage to take down the huge bear. Logan stabs it straight in the chest, and his brother wraps his arms around its neck and manages to break it. It's at this exact moment that the team realizes Logan no longer has his adamantium claw, and his brother laughs out loud, realizing that he's now much stronger than him, just like he's always believed. But something about the situation doesn't add up, since there's a really strange smell coming from these creatures, and there are signs of some kind of mutation on their bodies, maybe some virus spread through the water, which has turned the animals in this area into unstoppable beasts. Further ahead, they manage to find a wall, which probably surrounds the doctor's base, but the strange thing is, there's a huge hole in it, as if someone had gotten there before them, and they have no idea whether the place is completely destroyed or not. What they are sure of is that there was a big fight, since inside the wall, there's a lot of destruction and blood covering the snow, but there's no body anywhere. As they move through a tunnel, the smell guides them, but Maverick has a better option. He uses his tools to scan the whole place. and he discovers there's a life sign in the control room, but they need to hurry since the vitals are dropping. As the bodies start showing up, everyone notices they all have the same wound, 3 claw marks, similar to Logan's, but this guy is a lot more bloodthirsty since the main lab is a complete slaughterhouse. However, someone is still alive, none other than Dr. Cornelius himself, who's completely unharmed, which is pretty strange. And even though Yuriko wants to tear him apart, he's their only option for getting out of that place. Because in case they forgot, the helicopter is completely destroyed, and they're hundreds, maybe thousands of kilometers away from any coffee shop. However, when they're about to interrogate the doctor, something really strange happens, and he starts laughing in a frantic, evil way until he spits out the same green liquid they saw before and turns into a horrific creature with sharp tentacles that attacks them without mercy. And that's not all. These creatures start coming out from everywhere and in different shapes, like giant mosquitoes and larvae that lunge at them. The group starts shooting and fighting off these things, but their numbers don't seem to be going down, and the best thing they can do is get out of there, since it's clear they won't find what they came looking for in this place. Logan and his brother defend them, trying to buy them enough time to escape, but Yuriko ends up getting caught by one of those things, and while she's trying to break free from it, she's about to be killed. Luckily, Morph turns into the Hulk and uses his massive strength to destroy the tentacle and take out the rest of the giant mosquitoes that were about to shoot that strange liquid at them. After that, the team has no choice but to lock themselves behind reinforced glass, from where they can see those creatures trying to reach them, so they need to think of something fast, since the door won't hold forever. The bad news is there doesn't seem to be an end to those things, so who knows how far they've already spread across this whole area, and if they can handle the cold, they'll reach populated areas where they'll definitely become a problem. Maverick checks out the bunker and realizes it's completely coated in adamantium. So that should keep them safe for a long time, until they find a way out. But going up isn't the solution. They'd end up stranded in the middle of nowhere. The only thing they can do is keep going down and check each of the floors until they manage to reach the transport bay. There should be a vehicle there they can use, and then they'll take it back up through the elevator. However, they'll have to split up, since someone needs to turn on the generators so the vehicle bay doors can open. So Logan will go with Morph, and the rest will head to the generators. But there's something bothering all of them. Those things infect humans, and now they know that thanks to Cornelius, which means any one of them could already be infected. And Yuriko doesn't trust Logan, since when the helicopter crashed, he wasn't with the rest of them. So she decides to put the teams together and lets Logan go with Maverick, since he's the one who vanished. So he's the one they trust the least. And since a keen sense of smell has helped them before, she decides to take Sabretooth along and put up with the fact that he's a headache. Once they manage to reach the server room, the power comes back on, and Morph discovers a huge collection of discs with the names of many mutants they know, including themselves. On one of those discs, there's a video of Cornelius, saying that the people who volunteered for the experiments were the weakest of all, since memories were always a problem, because a mutant with a past is completely useless. That's why he focused his research on an alien species, and ever since he got a specimen in his hands, he learned a lot about the brood, whose brain works like a hive mind. A pretty disturbing reveal, honestly. The doctor made use of every part of the specimen and ran multiple tests on each part to get the best of the species and create the perfect mutant with no memory, no past, and completely obedient. The serum works completely and wipes out the identity of whoever receives it, but it also alters their body, giving them much greater strength and agility, while also making them completely uncontrollable. Now the team knows what happened to all the animals, and they've figured out that the things attacking them are part animal, part alien. When the video finally ends, the lights go out again, and the team realizes they're not alone. There's something walking above them through the ventilation ducts. Suddenly, a huge cockroach rises up behind Morph and attacks him. Its tentacles touch him for a moment, but the next second, Yuriko manages to slice it apart, and now we don't know if that was enough time for Morph to get infected. But everything seems fine, or at least he hasn't changed his behavior. Also, right at that moment, they get a call for help from their teammates, who are being attacked in the vehicle bay, so checking on Morph will have to wait. As they get closer to the vehicle bay, they find a place full of tubes, and inside one of them is Omega Red. A few seconds later, Maverick shows up with his helmet completely wrecked and his heart full of panic, telling them that a lot of those things came in through the ducts and attacked them without mercy. But Logan got the worst of it. Before Maverick can tell them anything else, a thick mist surrounds him, and the next second, Logan attacks Maverick and drives his claws through him, killing him instantly. The worst part is that now the guys don't just have to worry about Logan, but about the hundreds of creatures closing in through the ceiling, and they're basically doomed. Yuriko faces off against her ex-boyfriend, but they don't have the strength to hold him back, and Sabretooth shows up with a flamethrower, trying to burn his brother, but Logan attacks him from behind. He throws him with so much force that he smashes the console, waking up Omega Red, who attacks Logan with his whips. The guys have no idea whether Omega Red is on their side. The only thing they know is that none of them can beat Logan in that state, not even his brother, who got stabbed a couple of times and needs Morph's help just to walk. So they decide to escape from there, while Omega Red buys them enough time, and the rest of the creatures swarm on top of him. Yuriko and Sabretooth want to get out of there as soon as possible, but Morph refuses to abandon Logan, and when they open the door, he shoots the control panel, ending up locking them all in that room. Morph shapeshifts into different things trying to stop them, but Yuriko explains things and makes him see his mistake. They found Logan in the adamantium chamber, not in the vehicle bay, so it's clear he was already infected before, or he lied to them about the purpose of his mission, and he doesn't deserve to be rescued. Morph admits that might be true. Maybe Logan tricked them and brought them to this place just to get his claws back. But now they've got a much bigger problem on their hands. If one of those aliens escapes, with Logan's healing factor to work with, they'll conquer the entire world in a week, and they'll be unstoppable. According to what they saw in the video, Cornelius tried to put the brood through the adamantium process, and all of them died. So if they give Logan what he wants, they'll end up freeing him from those things, and he'll be back on their side. The aliens won't survive the pain of the process, but they know Logan can, and his healing factor will protect him. That's why he was the first candidate, and the only successful one. The only thing they have to figure out is a way to lure Logan toward the machine, and for that, Morph has an idea, even though it involves a big risk. So he turns into Cyclops, and steps out of the chamber to call him over. Morph is using the hatred Logan has for Cyclops to lure him toward the adamantium chamber, telling him over and over that he and Jean are very happy and that he's a loser. But all Logan wants is to tear him apart, and he starts attacking him over and over, trying to stab him with his bone claws. This is the risk Morph was talking about, and he has no choice but to try to dodge the attacks, since if for any reason he ends up getting even a small cut, he'll be infected with the virus. The bad news is that Logan can smell his brother, and Sabretooth has to come out early to try to subdue him, attacking him from behind, managing to lift him into the air and hurt him pretty badly. But, as expected, the healing factor erases his wounds, and infected Logan attacks again. On top of that, the creatures have managed to break through the control room door, and Yuriko has no choice but to fight them off long enough until the guys give her the signal that Logan is inside the machine. The next time we see Sabretooth, his body is completely torn apart, to the point where we can see his bones, and Logan isn't done with him. He keeps beating and slashing him, while everything around them starts to burn. Next up is Morph, who tries to dodge his attacks and talk sense into him, reminding him that when Sinister controlled him, he never left his side, so he's willing to do the same for him right now. The X-Men never leave their own behind, and he's not going to do that to him either. His words seem to reach the real Logan for a moment, but the next second, Logan stabs him straight in the shoulder, causing a pretty serious wound. At that moment, Morph gets the idea to turn into Jean, and that manages to make Logan step back and regret what he's done. This is the perfect chance for Yuriko to make her move, dropping down from above the control room, grabbing Logan from behind, and throwing him straight into the machine. She and Morph use all their strength to keep the door shut, while Sabretooth climbs up the wall and makes it to the controls, finally activating the machine and starting the adamantium process. With every hit, Logan lands on the glass. It cracks more and more, and time is running out. Soon their friend will break out and kill them, unless his brother manages to reach the top and press the button. Despite his serious wounds, his brother's healing factor has given him just enough strength to climb, activating the machine, which quickly fills with a blue liquid, and a pair of tentacles loaded with syringes full of liquid adamantium stab Logan in each of his limbs. Unfortunately, the process will take a while, time they don't have, since the lab door has come down, and about 100 of those giant cockroaches appear, with sharp teeth and eyes red as hell, ready to tear them all apart. Fortunately, Omega Red is still alive, and not only that, since he's basically a living zombie, he can't be infected by the virus, and it's pretty easy for him to destroy the monsters and cut them into little pieces. The bad news is that he doesn't see any allies in front of him, and he attacks the guys just as much as the monsters. And since Morph is hurt, the only one left to face him is Yuriko, but she gets caught by one of the whips, and Omega Red electrifies his weapon, sending a huge shock through Yuriko's body and knocking her completely out of the fight. When Morph tries to back her up, he gets hit with the same punishment, and now Omega Red is standing in the middle of the room like the winner of it all, but with 100 giant alien mosquitoes about to attack him. With the team defeated, Omega Red reveals his plans. The first thing he'll do is kill Logan, and then he'll release those creatures across the whole world to build his own empire of self-destruction and become the king of those things, since he himself can't be controlled. What an ambitious villain. Luckily, Logan isn't dead yet, and a few seconds later, we see his claws, now coated in adamantium, shoot out of his fist, which means the process finished successfully and the virus has left his body. With just a couple of slashes, he destroys the reinforced glass and steps out of the chamber, ready to face not only 100 modified cockroaches, but also the mosquitoes and Omega Red, who's planning to kill him. One cut at a time, Logan takes care of the cockroaches, then turns all his attention to the rest. At that moment, fire starts spreading through the place, scaring off the mosquitoes for the time being, but leaving Logan to face Omega Red. Finally, a breather for the team. Unfortunately, the fight has to get cut short, since the whole place is about to blow, and Morph tells Logan they need to get out of there right away, or they'll all die. So he hits Omega Red and manages to push him to the exact spot where a huge pillar falls on top of him, burying him, before heading back to the vehicle bay with the team. There, he manages to cut through the security panel with his new claws, and he holds off the mosquitoes that were chasing them. That gives them just enough seconds to steal a ship and escape before the mosquitoes devour them. Behind them, some huge fuel tanks explode, and the fire fills everything in its path, burning up the mosquitoes that were chasing them, but only doing minimal damage to the ship, which takes off successfully. From up above, the team can watch the whole base blow up into 1,000 pieces, destroying all evidence of what happened, along with Cornelius's videos and the bodies of their friends. On the plane, Morph tries to get the truth out of Logan, wanting him to admit he lied to them, and that's when Logan tells them that some people can only be one thing, not like him, who can turn into whatever he wants, and in Logan's case, that thing is an animal with claws. Morph reminds him that 2 of his best friends died because of his lies, and that even though he has his claws back, he'll have to live with what it cost to get them. A few seconds later, the episode comes to an end, with Logan silently staring at his gleaming claws, until he turns his attention to the sunset, coming to terms with the deaths he caused, and the fact that he'll have to live with it forever. A bittersweet ending, just as you'd expect. Episode 6 of the second season of X-Men 97 is finally here, and we can finally get back to the interesting story, to the moment when Apocalypse was about to kill Magneto. A strong start for the episode. Right as his skull was being crushed, Charles used his powers to reach out to him and apologize for his mistakes, telling him over and over that he was sorry he couldn't help him in that moment. Magneto reached his hand toward his best friend and also apologized to him for bringing him to this point, chasing a dream that they could convince the biggest villain of all to abandon his path, but in reality, they only sped up the whole process. It's clear someone messed up, and now Magneto will pay for it. This is where the epic scene repeats, and we can see how Apocalypse uses his cannon and aims it right at his back, so we can watch the beam light up his bones, right before a flash tears his body apart into 1,000 pieces. The only thing left of Magneto is his helmet, which we can see reflected in Charles's eye, which is completely full of tears as he watches his best friend get vaporized by the biggest villain they've ever known. The scene continues with Apocalypse approaching Charles, who is completely defenseless, unable to even move, when the giant puts his foot on his face and repeats the biggest lesson Magneto ever taught him. Only a coward feels powerful by stepping on ants. Except this time, we get an extra epic shot of Apocalypse having Charles completely at his mercy, and there's nothing he or any of his prized students can do to stop him. A few seconds later, we hear words we weren't expecting. Emergency simulation complete, and Charles gives a loud order to the system to reset. At that moment, everything happening takes a step backward in time, and we once again see Magneto being held by Apocalypse and vaporized over and over, since Charles keeps resetting the system, and the danger room keeps repeating the scene again and again. A few seconds later, we realize Charles is in the danger room, and this whole thing has been a way of finding out how many attempts it takes to change the outcome. But you can't change something that already happened, and what Charles is doing is torturing himself, replaying that scene over and over, looking for some way to give himself a bit of peace, knowing he couldn't do anything to change the result. Magneto is really dead, and all Charles is doing is torturing himself instead of helping his students reach their full potential. The world is still a dangerous place, and he can't change the past, at least not alone. We leave Charles for a moment and join Polaris, who's flying at high speed. A few seconds later, we find out her destination is to stop the plans of a cult called the Purifiers, who are right now at the docks, receiving a huge shipment of weapons. Through a comm, we find out their leader is Stryker, who's using pretty religious language to guide his new henchmen in the war against mutants. But before they can celebrate their big victory, Polaris shows up and uses her powers to drag the ship back toward the ocean, managing to split their forces almost in half, since now she only has to face a few of them instead of everyone surrounding the ship. As expected, she invokes the authority of the United States Department of Defense, and as a member of X-Factor, all of them are under arrest. They have to hand over all their contraband and surrender to be processed by the law. But negotiating with mutants is something the Purifiers aren't willing to do. They have the tools to stop her, and they plan to use them. So, a second later, a rain of bullets flies toward Polaris, who manages to dodge every single shot and uses her powers to cause some chaos on deck. The problem starts when one of the containers explodes, and the blast throws her a good distance away, but she manages to recover and comes back to keep attacking the criminals who have pushed her over the edge. So she uses her powers to lift the entire ship into the air and then flips it so the containers fall into the ocean, along with all the Purifiers, causing far more destruction than necessary. Once Valerie realizes what she did, she calls her immediately to scold her and tell her that her stunt has cost the United States at least $10 million and that she can't go around causing more destruction than the criminals. Valerie reminds her that even if they're criminals, they're still human lives, and that she's out of control. So under the authority she holds over her, she orders her to stop and return to base. But the Purifiers aren't done fighting. From the water, they start shooting at the ship, causing a massive explosion. At that moment, Polaris really loses her patience. She becomes completely furious, and she uses her powers to split the ship in half. Then she hurls the pieces at the criminals so they'll be crushed and die. 1 second before death reaches them, the Purifiers open their arms, as if welcoming a friend. Luckily, Havoc is nearby and channels 2 perfect shots at the ship, managing to knock it off course and saving the criminals' lives. The night ends with 0 deaths, but with a very serious conversation Polaris will have to face with the X-Factor Council. The last thing the government needs is another uncontrollable mutant who enjoys killing criminals. That's not how they operate, and Havoc reminds her of that when she gets back to the plane, a fight that spirals out of control fast. Valerie shows her that she's on national television as a symbol of terror for humanity, since it seems not even the United States government is able to control the mutants working for it, and the news is filled with sensationalist headlines saying Polaris destroyed the docks just for fun. Worst of all, people are calling her the next Magneto, and that's not good at all, not for public opinion, which they've worked so hard to change through good deeds. That's the whole reason X-Factor was created, and she's ruining what everyone else has worked so hard to build. Polaris refuses to keep following orders, and Valerie had an answer ready for that, since she expected her attitude to keep causing problems. So she fires her and tells her to leave headquarters permanently. In the locker room, Havoc tells her he didn't expect this to happen, but it's clear her attitude is out of line. Valerie didn't fire her for what she did, but for what she might do if she keeps going down that path. She's not saying she'll become the next Magneto, but it seems Polaris isn't doing anything to prevent it. Polaris reminds him whose side he's on. She can't forget she's a mutant, and that ship was full of people who specifically want them dead. And it wouldn't hurt for him to remember every now and then that he's a mutant too, not a bureaucrat. With Charles back, the Institute is being rebuilt, and the homeless mutants finally have somewhere to return to, and that's where Polaris is headed. That particular morning, they're welcoming a new batch of mutants who have been stripped of their homes and rejected by society. But Charles reminds them they're in the right place. Here, they'll learn to master their abilities and use them for a greater good. After introducing them to Storm, the new dean of students, something strange happens. The roof opens up and debris falls on top of them. At that moment, we can see Apocalypse's soldiers trying to grab the kids, but it turns out the whole speech is being given inside the danger room. So they'll learn that no place is entirely safe and that how they react to these situations is what will keep them alive. Later that same day, Polaris finally arrives at the mansion, but the place seems completely empty. In fact, she walks through the hallways and rooms and doesn't find anyone, which is extremely strange. On Charles's desk, there's a photo of him with Magneto, and Polaris stares at it for a few seconds. Then, in her room, Jean finally shows up, along with Beast and Cyclops, who are thrilled she's back and have saved her a spot on the faculty. And even though this isn't the homecoming she pictured, she's willing to help with whatever comes next, since the world is more dangerous than ever for them, especially now. As expected, the conversation between Polaris and the professor is pretty awkward, mostly because she had convinced herself that X-Factor was doing the right thing by getting mutant kids off the streets. But what she didn't know is that they were prisoners, basically cargo being moved from place to place until they were forgotten. Charles knows what happened at the docks, but that's no reason to think she'll turn into the bad version of her father, though he does suggest she try to understand what's going on with her and give some meaning to all that anger inside her. That afternoon, the team leaves to comb through the ruins of Genosha looking for answers, but Polaris stays home. It'll do her good to spend time with the kids and catch up on her new duties. That's where Storm comes in, telling her how happy she is that she's back home. Even Forge gives her a hug and tells her it didn't take getting fired for them to run into each other again. The bad news is there isn't much time to keep catching up, since something bad is happening in the danger room. When they arrive, they see a boy lying on the floor. Bishop is over him, trying to do CPR, but even though Storm helps out with a bit of electricity to wake the boy up, it doesn't work. A few seconds later, the boy's pulse stabilizes, and now they just have to wait for him to wake up. Still, it's time to ask questions, because nobody has any idea what happened, only the kids. Polaris brings a stretcher to move the boy, but a few seconds later, the door shuts, and right after that, it vanishes completely, while we can see that someone is spying on them through the cameras. A few seconds later, a blade trap appears and nearly cuts the kids in half. Luckily, Bishop manages to save them, but at that moment, a dozen turrets appear on the ceiling, and a hail of gunfire rains down on them. To defend herself, Polaris channels a magnetic field, and Bishop uses the bullets to charge up his fists, managing to destroy the turrets. The bad news is this is only the start, since a dozen robots show up next, and those are much harder to beat. At that point, we realize the kids are up against the artificial intelligence running the danger room. Basically, Charles made a mistake. He thought the AI would be advanced enough to understand his mind, and now it's convinced that finding the breaking point of everything that enters it is its main mission. When Storm and Forge reach the front door to check what threat popped up in the system, it turns out they were tricked by the AI, and nothing at all is happening outside the mansion. They've simply been locked out of the house, with no way to get back to the danger room. The AI starts analyzing Bishop and scans his brain, managing to pull them into a point in the future, where they find themselves on a very dangerous street he remembers, only now it's swarming with sentinels. Luckily for Bishop and the rest of the kids, Polaris is quite strong. She wasn't Charles's favorite for nothing, and the AI is forced to raise the difficulty level to see just how far she can push. The computer starts repeating over and over that only the strongest survive, hinting that maybe some of them, the weaker ones, won't make it out alive, since, as it has had to evolve, those are its new protocols now. A few seconds later, the AI analyzes Polaris and starts repeating what everyone has told her, that she's too impulsive and a danger to everyone around her, showing her once again what happened with the ship trying to torture her and break her psyche. To finish breaking her, it shows her an evil version of her father and repeats over and over that this will be her fate too. As expected, Polaris unleashes uncontrollable rage and is about to destroy the whole room, but Bishop grabs her by the arm and tells her she has to fight those feelings since she's hurting the students. Luckily, Polaris manages to stop herself in time, but what just happened is exactly what the AI wanted, because it just absorbed all the power she released and is using it to build a new robot, one that will finally give them a real challenge. A few seconds later, the AI transfers all its knowledge into that robot and introduces itself as Danger, finally putting a face to this episode's villain. a twist that changes the tone of the whole episode. Her speed and strength are unmatched. Not even Bishop can predict her next move, and he ends up knocked out, just like Polaris a few seconds later. By the time she manages to wake up, Storm is standing in front of her. She tells her that Danger caused a massive explosion and destroyed the roof. Then she stole one of their jets and is heading toward Genosha, since it seems beating Polaris wasn't her main goal after all. She only used her to get the power she needed to escape. The bad news is that Tiao, under a presidential order, the X-Men aren't allowed anywhere near Genosha, so if they want to warn the professor and help him out with this, they'll have to be a lot more careful. This mission falls to Bishop and Polaris, who will have to team up and fly quickly in one of the jets to get there in time. In Genosha, Charles is paying his respects at the ruined dream Magneto once had, while the rest of the team honors everyone who died there. When a signal from Polaris warns them someone is about to attack, a few seconds later, the signal cuts out. Luckily, Beast has a bracelet that can analyze the signal's signature, and everything points to it coming from their own danger room, which doesn't make any sense, at least not to him. But on Charles's face, we can see a flash of fear. Danger shows up a few seconds later and jumps from the plane, kicking off the survival protocol. The first to attack her are Cyclops and Jean, but it turns out Danger is basically the intelligence that trained them for combat and knows all their moves. Jean comes up with the idea of channeling a pair of daggers identical to Logan's and holding them up in front of Cyclops' eyes to create a split beam that manages to hit Danger, but she returns the hit, deflecting one of Cyclops' blasts and striking them both directly. Meanwhile, Charles begs Beast to use his bracelet to try to stop her. Beast had already thought this through. If they reprogram her, her predictive system won't work, and they'll have a better shot at beating her, so he does most of the work, and then throws her his bracelet while trying to buy some time, but Danger hits him with an energy blast and sends him flying. Once Danger is standing in front of her creator, she tells him that he made her to prepare everyone for the dangers of the world, and that's exactly what she's doing, and she's about to do it to him too, since he created her to figure out how to survive in a world without Magneto. It's time to put him to the test and find his breaking point. Right after that, Danger lunges at Charles. Luckily, his chair has a few tricks up its sleeve and manages to fire off a series of blasts that buy him a couple of seconds, but none of it will save him. When Danger is about to finish him off, Charles uses Beast's bracelet to call in the jet that brought her and orders it to ram into her with full force. The blast from the jet buys him a few more seconds, and it leaves a couple of dents in Danger, but she comes back a bit annoyed and dragging an axe, ready to take the professor's head off. Before that can happen, Polaris arrives and uses her power to hold her back, but once again, Danger mocks her and tells her they're not that different. They're both destined to repeat their parents' mistakes. Just as she's doing it to Charles, Polaris will one day do the same with Magneto. For a moment, it looks like the team won't be able to beat this new villain, but this is where teamwork really kicks in, since Jean shows up once more and creates a whirlwind that keeps Danger trapped, and Polaris takes the opportunity to hurl every piece of metal debris she can at her, hitting her again and again, and damaging her physical body. This makes them think for a few seconds that they're winning, but they couldn't be more wrong. Danger is using the energy to rebuild herself after every hit, and not only are they helping her heal, they're pushing her abilities to a level nobody has ever seen before. But maybe that's the only way to really beat her, and Charles tells Polaris she has to do exactly what she's been avoiding. She has to lose control and unleash all her power, so much that it becomes impossible for Danger to control it and be able to destroy her. It's the only way for them to get out of there alive. Charles tells her she's truly her father's daughter, and that he saw him do incredible things. He knows exactly what she's capable of, and he passes on to Polaris a piece of her father's memories, the good things he managed to accomplish. This causes Polaris to rise up alongside Charles, and a huge amount of energy starts pouring out of her body, creating a storm so powerful that Bishop has to use his own body to hold part of it back and keep it from taking out the rest of their teammates standing behind them. As this massive amount of energy channels directly into Danger, Charles helps Polaris keep control with images of her father and the fate the two of them now share. The impact of the energy completely destroys Danger, who, right before shattering into 1,000 pieces, ends the survival protocol, declaring the mission a success, showing Charles his next step, which is that it's never too late to reinvent yourself, and now he needs to become Polaris's mentor so that she can become everything her father always tried to be. And his next move is to build a massive skyscraper amid the ruins of Genosha for a second attempt at what Magneto always wanted. And when the announcement is made to the press, he unveils his new vision for a world with mutants, a company called X-Corp that operates outside federal law. The episode ends with the X-Men Council sitting on the top floor of their new headquarters, listening to Valeri's speech, in which she warns him that he won't be allowed to play his game, and that the United States government won't let him do whatever he wants. A few seconds later, we see Charles telling his team that Danger was right and taught them a valuable lesson. The world is more dangerous now than before, and it's time for them to stop taking the hit and start preparing to give one back. In a final scene, we travel to Athens, to a secret lab built beneath ancient ruins, where we see Apocalypse playing God and using a machine to bring a test subject back to life. The machine runs at full power, and a few seconds later, a familiar pink-colored energy fills the whole place, and a series of cards appear everywhere, leaving us a hint about who this new villain serving Apocalypse will be. A scene that leaves plenty to think about and promises more story to come. The 7th episode of the 2nd season is finally here, and it picks up exactly where we left off, with X-Force's threat against Charles Xavier's new creation. The building he's constructing won't save him from world law. A few seconds later, the story takes us back to the past, to the moment when Colossus and his sister were doing everything they could to save people during Apocalypse's attack, but the last thing he remembers of her is seeing her surrounded by a green glow. After that, tremendous destruction followed, and Illyana's body was left lying on the ground. After she had done everything she could to save some people from certain death, Colossus approached slowly, unable to believe what he was seeing. He took her in his arms and screamed with all his strength in pain. All around him, there was nothing but destruction, caused by the same villain we've been chasing since the beginning, Apocalypse. Right after that, we see a huge crowd of people gathering to cheer for the new presidential candidate, Creed, whose politics are completely anti-mutant, and he is certain that Genosha was no accident, but a sign of what will happen to the rest of the world if people keep putting their lives in the hands of those things. The world isn't made to coexist with mutants, and they need to teach that to President Kelly, who is using everyone's taxes to give benefits to people who don't deserve them, and whose only solution is extinction. Right as Creed announces his candidacy to the United States and declares war on mutants, the roof blows apart into 1,000 pieces, and a group of them bursts into the venue, causing chaos and fear in people's hearts. Once the dust settles, we realize it's a group of acolytes, led by Carmella, who orders them to keep attacking. She'll go after Creed herself, but what really surprises us is seeing who's in their ranks. Colossus himself, who uses his great strength to take out the Secret Service agents and gets the future president in his hands. Even though half a dozen agents have their weapons aimed straight at his chest, Colossus doesn't flinch at all and pulls out handcuffs to put on Creed and take him away as a prisoner. Before the agents can fire, we get to enjoy Exodus's appearance, who uses his powers to stop them without losing any style in the process. After this, we realize the officers don't stand a chance. And, in the next scene, we're shown that the acolytes succeeded and kidnapped the current front-running candidate for the presidency. The reporter states that Magneto's acolytes are a supremacy that isn't willing to keep being attacked or branded as outcasts of society. This news is being watched by Jean and Cyclops, who were trying to have a drink at a bar, but now have to head home to deal with all of this. But the news doesn't end there. The network has received a video made by the leader of the acolytes, Exodus, who informs humanity that 4,621 seconds were all it took to turn Genosha into ruins. Enough time for humanity to have come up with a response in favor of the mutants that were forming for everyone's benefit. But instead, they create men like Creed, who only spread hatred and indifference in people's minds in order to brand them as monsters, or worse. But that's what he's there for, since he understood perfectly what Magneto tried to teach them, that you can't appeal to humanity's good heart, because they don't have one, so now they're willing to sink to their level for the good of their brothers and sisters. From this moment on, every mutant who has been arrested by X-Factor and their like will be released immediately and placed under the Acolytes' jurisdiction. If they refuse to obey these demands, Creed will die. This news is being watched by Nightcrawler and Rogue at the X-Corp offices, and she's convinced that Creed deserves the same same compassion as a crocodile. He's an evil man who has only wished them harm since all of this began, and she's not sure that helping him is the right choice. A few minutes later, we see Cooper talking to Charles and ordering him not to get involved in any of this. She's about to secure the United Nations approval so X-Factor can operate internationally, and this is exactly the kind of rescue they need to earn that approval. But the X-Men are already tracking down the Acolyte's secret hideout, and they'll act without asking permission because they don't need it. And with Beast's help, tracking down the Acolytes isn't hard at all. The bad news is that they've chosen the Savage Land to build their hideout, one of the most inhospitable and difficult places on the whole planet. Traveling with them are Polaris and Bishop, along with the ones we saw before, but Rogue isn't so convinced that helping the so-called Creed is the right thing to do. Still, as expected, she's only here to support Nightcrawler and follow orders. In fact, none of the people on that plane believe Creed deserves their help. Only Nightcrawler, with his newfound faith, is convinced that anyone can achieve salvation. Unfortunately, there isn't much time to talk about who stands where, since a few seconds later, the plane comes under attack from some kind of radiation, similar to the one Sinister used during his experiments. This field causes Bishop a lot of pain, but the rest of the team doesn't seem to feel it. Before the team can analyze the signal or do anything about it, two missiles head straight for them and strike the ship, destroying much of the cargo bay and causing a decompression that forces them down. When they try to use their powers to get out of the situation alive, they realize none of them are working. Bishop ends up thrown from the ship and falling from a great height. Polaris, who had grown a bit fond of him over the last few days, dives into the void to rescue him, and a second before reaching him, manages to grab onto a parachute, which ends up saving both of their lives. Now they're stranded in the middle of a jungle they don't know, with no powers, and a second later, something very big starts approaching. So big that every step makes the water on the ground ripple. And that's not a good sign. Out of nowhere, a huge tyrannosaur appears and charges toward them with great force, but luckily, it ends up ignoring them, and Bishop manages to scoop Polaris into his arms and hide her behind a dry log. The bad news is that now we find out the reason behind the pain Bishop has been feeling. Energy is building up inside him, but because of that radiation, he can't release it, and that could turn into a pretty serious problem in the long run. So he needs to either get out of here right away or find the source of that radiation and stop it. What is certain is that they don't have much time. Back at the ship, Colossus shows up to rescue his fellow mutants, but he remains reluctant to cooperate with them, not until he finds out what they're doing there. A few seconds later, a group of acolytes shows up, and Rogue tells them they're there to rescue Creed and to stop them from starting World War III. But once Colossus hears this, he withdraws any offer of help and tells them it would be best if they left, since they're not willing to hand over their hostage. Not even after learning that Creed is Nightcrawler's half-brother. That's not reason enough to change their whole purpose, so the boy asks them to show him that purpose. He knows they can't stop them while they're here without powers, but maybe by walking their streets and meeting their people, they can understand why they're doing this, and that would send a powerful message to the outside world. This ends up convincing Colossus that there's nothing they can do to ruin his plans, not without their powers, but he needs them to keep an open mind, and maybe that could build a bond between the X-Men and the Acolytes. Colossus gives them a tour of the ruins, which are slowly stopping to look like ruins at all, since the Acolytes have been working tirelessly to build a kind of sanctuary for their people. All they want is food, water, and perfectly reasonable demands. Colossus admits that Exodus may not have the gentlest methods, but he's given every one of them a purpose, and every day they rescue more mutants and give them the same respect for those they've lost, along with a goal to work toward. Among those ruins, they honor the lives of those they lost, and next to Illyana's altar, his beloved sister, there's a photo of Magneto, the man who gave them hope, and whom they're trying to live up to as best they can. After showing them the altar, Colossus takes them to the cells, where he shows them that Creed isn't being treated inhumanely, though he still holds on to his contempt for mutants, since even standing in front of his half-brother, he looks disgusted, as if he'd rather stay there than let them help him. Exodus shows up a few seconds later and tells him that people like this don't change. The kind of hatred he's showing toward his own blood isn't something Nightcrawler can fix with words. Still, Nightcrawler proposes holding a trial for Creed right here in the Savage Land, where he can prove that his brother's soul is still capable of redemption, since among humans, this never happened, and he was cleared of his atrocities against the mutant race. The deal is simple. A trial will be held in which Colossus will represent justice on behalf of the mutants, and Nightcrawler will act as his brother's defense. If he manages to prove he's right, then they'll set them both free. But if Colossus wins, he'll join their ranks without putting up any resistance. While that's happening, Bishop and Polaris manage to make it back to the ship, where she thinks their friends abandoned them somehow. But he points out that the seatbelts were torn off, which means someone took them, someone very strong. Luckily, they ignored the weapons, so he has all the toys he needs to go after the inhibitor tower and destroy it. That way they'll get their powers back, and he won't end up imploding. Back at the ruins, the trial has begun, and when they bring Creed out, he starts insulting every mutant around him, telling them he doesn't recognize their authority, and that if it were up to him, they'd all end up destroyed. Hearing this, one of the acolytes lashes him with an electric whip, and the rest cheer, but Colossus reminds them that they have to keep order, and won't act like animals when justice is about to be served. With his opening statement, Exodus makes it clear to everyone that Creed is a despicable man. He didn't just create humanity's friends, he also created a virus that killed many of their people and tried to pin the blame on one of them in order to take out the president. He's a man who has devoted his life to making things miserable for them, and he has no plans to stop. If he manages to reach the highest office in the human government, he will surely cause a great deal of chaos in his effort to uphold his ideals. Worst of all, those crimes were practically ignored by humanity, who don't seem to care what happens to mutants, even though they do their best every single day to protect them. However, if humanity refuses to seek justice for the crimes committed against their race, then it's time for them to do it themselves. Creed is the embodiment of hatred toward mutants, and even when his brother tries to defend him, he reveals to everyone that the only reason he hates them is because they were born. And it doesn't matter where the blood running through his body comes from, whether it's from Mystique or from someone else. That doesn't change what he thinks, and nothing his cassock might guide him to say will make him change his mind. But when Nightcrawler reveals to everyone that Creed is the child not just of one mutant parent, but of two, he becomes a little more talkative and tells them he wasn't the only one with a hard life. His mother abandoned him when he was barely a baby, and his father tried to turn him into a beast, punishing him whenever he didn't do exactly what he was supposed to. That's why he has that scar on his face. Throughout his childhood, he kept telling himself over and over that he had to hold on until he turned 13 to get his powers and make his father proud by becoming a better hunter than him. But that never happened, and instead of getting congratulated, he became an outcast. The truth is, he doesn't hate all mutants. He hates the only two who failed him, the same two who made him feel that being human wasn't enough. That's why he's so resentful, even willing to sacrifice his life just to hold on to his hatred for them, when what he really needs to do is forgive them and devote his life to a better purpose than simply living for hatred of his parents. Realizing that the boy is managing to win everyone over, Exodus loses his patience and draws his sword, telling Colossus to give his verdict, and he'll carry out the sentence. But right as Colossus is about to say the word innocent, Exodus attacks him and uses his powers to lift him into the air, calling him a traitor for abandoning everything he believed in and letting himself be swayed by a desperate kid. That's not the kind of honor his sister deserves. The pain is so intense that Colossus can't stop screaming, while Exodus vows he'll kill him and send him to join his sister so he can see the disappointment on her face when she realizes he abandoned the cause of a better world for their kind. Luckily for the team, Polaris and Bishop manage to tame a pair of pterodactyls and fly toward the inhibitor tower, unloading the fury of their weapons on it and managing to shut down the radiation that was keeping them from using their powers. Once the radiation is finally gone from the area, their powers can be used again. But before they can help their teammates, Exodus unleashes a massive burst of energy that hits them and knocks them out of the sky. Only this time, it's Bishop who takes the risk to catch Polaris and save her life, returning the favor from before. Now that all his powers are back, he releases all the energy trapped inside his body, managing to take down several mutants, while the rest of the team regroups and works out a plan. In the middle of the battle, Colossus takes their side and helps Bishop defeat the remaining mutants. Unfortunately, Exodus turns his attention to Creed and draws his sword to behead him right at the moment his brother appears, ready to fight for his life. The battle between Exodus and Nightcrawler is thrilling. Both are incredible swordsmen who can teleport from place to place, making it well worth watching in slow motion. Meanwhile, Colossus and Bishop team up. The giant takes care of stopping the strongest ones, and Bishop fires at just the right moments, managing to turn the enemy's numbers advantage into something insignificant. By the end of the battle, Nightcrawler secures the victory. He not only holds his sword to Exodus's neck, but the dagger on his tail keeps him pinned from behind as well, though Exodus refuses to surrender. And a few seconds later, a gunshot rings out. Out of a cloud of dust, Creed appears, holding a gun, and he hasn't hesitated for a single second to kill Exodus, then grabs his brother as a hostage and threatens to shoot him too if he doesn't get him out of there immediately. Nightcrawler can't believe what his brother has done, and before the others can attack him, he teleports away to a frozen wasteland where he manages to subdue him and wrench the gun away from him. There he tells him he can't wrap his head around how inhuman he is, and even though he's convinced that everyone can be saved, Creed has made him doubt that for the first time, and maybe the others are right, and he should die for his atrocities, so that God himself can be his judge, jury, and witness. A few seconds later, the scene cuts back to the X-Corp office, where Cooper reveals to Charles that they found Creed stranded in a frozen wasteland, and that's exactly what she wanted, to have him rescued, though she never said how or where. Charles tells her the word she's looking for is thank you, but that doesn't mean they're friends. If he ever makes a mistake, she'll do everything in her power to take away not just his corporation, but his school too, and she'll put every one of his students in a cell. At the end of the episode, Nightcrawler catches up with Colossus and asks him what his verdict would have been, and he confesses that unfortunately, he wasn't convinced. He was going to execute Creed, but he knows Creed would have convinced his sister. The episode ends with a bonus scene where we see Cable's team arrive at some ruins where they end up finding Apocalypse's corpse, and the only clue is a burned letter. Episode number 8 of the second season of X-Men 97 has finally arrived, bringing us directly back to Ansaba Noor's storyline, at the exact moment where we see him chatting with Rogue, who appears sad about having lost someone very important to her. That person is none other than Gambit, whom she loved with all her strength, but whose fate separated them. Now, the only thing repeating in her mind are Ansaba Noor's words when he told her that love causes pain. But she responded by telling him that, even so, she wished for him to experience love at some point in his life, because there is nothing like feeling that way, even knowing that one day it will end. After this scene from the past, we jump to the present, where we can see Apocalypse operating the machine to bring Gambit back to life so that Cable's team can later find the remains and keep us updated with the plot. In the following scene, we see Rogue wearing a spectacular dress, but dancing alone, appearing somewhat sad for a moment, until Gambit appears and their lips join in a kiss, allowing them to dance properly and feel that they are finally together. The moment is extremely tender until Gambit changes and his skin turns completely dark. But the strangest thing is that on Rogue's hand, there is a small spot that rapidly spreads across her entire body. It is here that we discover the title of this episode, which is Dead Man's Hand, formally beginning with Rogue waking up in her bed, sweaty and somewhat unstable after that nightmare. Since she couldn't get back to sleep, Rogue goes up to the office, where she finds her teammates playing poker and tries to completely forget about her nightmare by chatting with them and watching Beast strip Nightcrawler of everything he has in a game. Unfortunately, happiness doesn't last forever. A few seconds later, the fire alarm goes off. On the scanner, Beast can see that a massive bomber equipped with ionic jammers is approaching the building, possessing enough power to reduce them to ashes. The professor tries to communicate with them, but it is a futile attempt, so Beast immediately activates the island's defenses, designed to safeguard everyone's lives. With the press of a single button, the building emits a massive electromagnetic field that will bring down anything that approaches past the coastline. The surprise is that the aircraft not only breaches the electromagnetic field, but also enters their system. A few seconds later, we can see on the screen that it is Cable who has come to have a brief talk with them and deliver the bad news regarding what they found. The first thing the X-Men see when the plane's cargo bay opens is a huge container holding Apocalypse's corpse. Immediately following this, Rogue receives a clue, a burned card found at the site of the murder. Thus, the plan is simple. The professor will use Cerebro to locate him, him, and the team will go after him, not to assassinate him as Cable is accustomed to doing on his missions, but so Rogue can enter and free him from the prison he is in, just as she did with Archangel so long ago. The professor agrees to help them under one condition. This will be an X-Men rescue mission, so he will not tolerate brutal acts or the tactics Cable is used to employing. Rogue cannot believe any of this and clings to the pessimistic side of the story, but Nightcrawler tries to encourage her. Despite everything that has happened, Remy is back, and they have the opportunity to do everything in their power to get him back. As soon as the professor puts on the helmet, he travels directly to New Orleans, where the celebration of Mardi Gras and the costumes provide the perfect occasion for someone like Gambit to go unnoticed. However, what he did not expect was to be fooled by a decoy while the real one attacked him from behind, managing to place his hand on his face. The moment Gambit places his hand on Charles's face, a dark energy flows completely through him and expels him from Cerebro, leaving him thoroughly shocked by the level of darkness he now possesses. The only good news is that they manage to discover where he is and where he is heading. But at the same time that is happening, Gambit is holding a meeting with his old colleagues, who received an invitation but have no idea why they are there. Robert shows him an envelope, and Belladonna pulls out the exact same envelope. But before they can engage in a fight, Gambit appears and tells them he was hoping to leave them more impressed with his new look. Robert asks his brother what on earth happened to him. Gambit narrates to him how he died and how a monster subsequently pulled him from his slumber to bring him back with far more power than he possessed before. But most importantly, he now has a new purpose that includes them. With just a wave of his hands, Gambit places a card on the neck of each of his old colleagues, and they beg him not to murder them. However, he never had that intention, revealing to them that death is not what they think, it is evolution. 2 seconds later, the cards enter their bodies, and they begin undergoing a sort of transformation as their skin turns dark. Amid everyone's screams, we return to Cable's plane, which is heading toward Gambit's last known location, with the plan remaining unchanged. Get Rogue as close as possible and avoid killing anyone, since they are now operating under the jurisdiction of the X-Men. On the other side of the plane, Cable receives a visit from his parents, who want to have a heart-to-heart talk with him about how he is feeling and how he has been handling things since meeting them as a child, as well as asking him why he didn't try to look for them afterward. Cable says that time always finds a way to pull them apart, and although he wanted to, he knew he shouldn't mess with the timelines. However, they can be a family now, if he wishes. As they approach their destination, Psylocke attempts a scan and realizes there are no normal minds around them. After this, Jean makes an attempt and discovers a massive void in people's minds, as if all their humanity had somehow vanished. It is here that Gambit appears with his new brethren on flying motorcycles and unleashes a hail of cards that strike the aircraft from all directions, and it won't be long before he manages to bring it down. Belladonna and Robert board the plane, slicing through the metal like butter with their new dark energy-infused weapons, and the battle on board commences. At that moment, Cyclops tells Rogue to skip the introductions and find Gambit immediately, as she is the only one who can put an end to all this. Outside the vessel, Jean tries to use her powers to keep the plane airborne, but she is attacked by several soldiers, whom Archangel won't be able to hold off for very long. When Sunspot takes a direct hit, she has to use her powers to save him, causing her to lose control of the ship as it begins to plummet. Rogue reaches the cargo bay and attempts to get through to Remy, telling him that Apocalypse poisoned his mind, but that she can help him. At that moment, she removes her gloves and begins searching the area step by step until she hears the voice of the man she loves, telling her that it's true. Life really does flash before your eyes when you're about to die. And when that began happening to him, the only thing he could see was her, looking as beautiful as she does right now. A few seconds later, Gambit steps out from the shadows, and Rogue cannot believe his current appearance. She tries to place her hand on his face, but nothing happens. However, when Gambit places his finger on Rogue's forehead, his powers do work, causing her to lose consciousness. At that moment, Jean informs the team that she has lost contact with Rogue's mind and that they must find her immediately. Nightcrawler teleports to the cargo bay and catches sight of Gambit trying to carry her away. He attacks him, but Gambit throws a homing card at him that pursues him no matter where he leaps, striking him directly in the ribs. The card continues to emit the same dark energy until Nightcrawler loses consciousness, prompting Gambit to take him as well, leaving behind a deck of explosive cards that destroy a large portion of the plane to the point where it is beyond saving, and nothing can prevent it from crashing into the city. John and Saylock risk their lives to reduce the aircraft's speed, but even together, they lack the strength to keep a vessel of this size airborne. Realizing they are doomed, Cyclops begs his son to unleash his power to help them prevent this tragedy. Before the plane is completely destroyed, Cable releases a massive surge of energy. They manage to land safely, but have no choice but to abandon their beloved ship, which will surely be claimed by X-Factor. The rest of the team catches the news, and Storm tells them they will leave the school in Colossus's care, as their friends need them, and it is time to fight for their own. Back with Rogue, she awakens in an ancient mansion where Nightcrawler tells her to get ready, as a dinner is being held in her honor and she won't want to be late. Although Rogue tries to communicate with him, his red eyes reveal that he is not in his right mind and is almost certainly being controlled by Gambit. Thus, she decides to play along, and when she faces him, she asks why he sent his ex to kidnap her, only to put on this whole show. Remy asks her why she is working with Cable, knowing full well that Cable is trying to kill him, but Rogue explains that they were only trying to help him. That was what she attempted when she touched his face, though it didn't work, and she has no idea why. Remy tells her that he now has a new purpose and wants her to be part of it. He didn't crawl out of the grave to repeat past mistakes, but he needs her by his side in this new chapter. It is a second chance for them, and to demonstrate his trust, he plans to show her his hand. It turns out, Apocalypse was not so different from them. He too met a woman who broke his heart. A priestess of ancient Egypt managed to convince him to yield a large portion of his power to her. But as soon as Apocalypse gave in to her demands, she betrayed him and used that power to punish him for what he had done to her people. Afterward, she simply disappeared. But Gambit knows the location where she hid for so long, and reaching that power is now the purpose, keeping him alive. The locals know her as external, and the relic resting within her will render Rogue immortal, just like him, allowing them to be together for the rest of eternity. As husband and wife, this is the second chance he was speaking of, and he desires to share it with no one else but her. In the following scene, we see that his subjects have prepared a wedding, and Rogue appears once more, wearing a spectacular dress, for Nightcrawler to join them in matrimony. But before the ceremony, Gambit takes a dagger and cuts his hand, making sure to thoroughly drench it in his blood, which will be used to invoke External so she may bless their union. However, when Gambit points out that he has come for her jewel of power, the mythical sorceress laughs and tells him it was forged in the very fires of creation. She is worthy of all that and more. Nevertheless, Gambit interrupts her, calling her nothing more than a vile thief who took advantage of a man's love and does not deserve to bear that jewel. Enraged, the sorceress attempts to attack him, but Gambit pierces her with an energy blade, reducing her to dust and taking the jewel as a gift for his future wife. But Rogue does not approve of any of this, and fortunately, a few seconds later, the X-Men's jet arrives as the entire team steps in to put an end to the madness. Cyclops tries to reason with him, stating it doesn't have to become a full-scale battle, but Gambit is going all in, and his cards are far superior to theirs, so he has no intention of backing down and sends his men into combat. At that moment, we see Jean utilize her power to round up several of Gambit's subjects, while Storm hurls a massive electrified wave at them, defeating them in an instant. However, Nightcrawler remains, and single-handedly manages to defeat several teammates by teleporting from place to place, ensuring the rest are helpless by taking them far away from that location. Anyone possessive of enough strength to defeat him ends up transported to the swamp miles away, and a moment later, he returns to repeat the process until there is no one left to stop Gambit. Gambit then embeds the jewel into Rogue's chest, causing her to collapse as it merges with her body. From the plane, Charles uses his mind to attack him, and although Gambit transforms his trusty staff into a scythe of death, Charles succeeds in pulling him out of his own physical body and bringing him into another version of this realm where his powers are not strong enough to prevail. Or so Charles foolishly believed, as the darkness within Gambit is not only sufficient, but overwhelming, leaving the old man defeated within his own mind, something that had never happened before, not since he faced Apocalypse himself. Charles gives everything he has in a final stand, summoning armor, but Gambit succeeds in defeating him. At the climax of the battle, Charles abandons the idea of defeating him and instead focuses on freeing him, using his power to subdue the evil persona and reaching out to the real Remy inside, who longs to break free. In that instant, he spots a hand reaching out from Gambit's body, so he grasps it and helps him escape. Outside, Nightcrawler is finally defeated after the entire team launches a synchronized attack. However, that is the precise moment Cable seizes to make his move upon realizing Gambit is exposed, ordering his teammates to subdue the X-Men. The first to react is Psylocke, who holds an energy blade to Cyclops' neck, taking him hostage while Archangel takes to the skies to keep watch long enough for Cable to carry out his task. Cable approaches slowly and draws his weapon with the sole intent of executing Gambit. And although Jean threatens to control his mind and stop him, he possesses a latent power that prevents her from doing so. Inside Gambit's mind, Charles has finally managed to pull Remy out and expose the true version of Apocalypse that was controlling him, who tells Charles that, after all, he failed to learn his lesson and should never have stood in his way. Apocalypse reminds him of what he did to Magneto, declaring that this time he will show no mercy. He is the only one who always prevails, no one else. Outside, the X-Men make a swift move with the help of Sunspot and Jubilee, who are still unaccustomed to Cable's lethal tactics, managing to free Cyclops at the exact right moment. Together, they unleash a blast of energy, successfully halting the execution. Although Charles managed to pull Remy out of the darkness, Apocalypse drags him back in, and not only that, begins absorbing Charles as well, making it appear as though the villain will claim victory. But suddenly, a massive beam of light appears, saving the Professor, originating from Rogue's hand, who seconds later enters their minds using the power she received from external to pull Gambit out of Apocalypse's body, and subsequently use him as a conduit to destroy what remains. In the end, the human version of Gambit returns to them, but the Professor immediately reaches out to inform them that they must return home as soon as possible. Thus, Nightcrawler, having now regained control of his mind, asks them to gather together before teleporting them away, leaving behind the aircraft and X-Force. In the lab, Beast analyzes him, and although his vital signs are stable, his neuronal activity is quite strange. It is here that the Professor reveals to them that Rogue did not manage to completely eradicate Apocalypse. Rather, he is now contained within Remy's mind, and unless they act quickly, he will take control of him once more. The episode ends with Cable furious about everything that transpired. Not only did they fail in their mission and lose their beloved plane, but 2 seconds later, X-Factor appears, and Val Cooper offers them a temporary truce, presenting a card depicting a burning tower and telling them that both sides might get what they are searching for, leaving us with further questions regarding the future of these teams and the rebirth of Apocalypse. So be sure to leave a like and a comment, and see you next week. The 9th episode of the 2nd season of X-Men 97 is finally here. After a week, this episode comes to us with images from the story of En Sabah Nur and all the pain and betrayals he had to go through to become Apocalypse. Now the biggest villain of the entire saga is trapped inside Remy's mind, and the Professor is sure that if they don't act now, they won't be able to stop him. And there is another person who thinks the same way. This is Cable, whom we remember from the previous episode, making a new truce with X-Factor. That morning, Cable is telling them that the person who raised him told him his destiny was to destroy Apocalypse, and that he should not hesitate to fulfill this mission. For years, he repeated to him that he should not try to understand him or reason with him, only destroy him. And now that this villain has decided to hide inside the mind of one of the Professor's pets, it is time to attack. Apocalypse's power has a very clear signal that he has memorized, and right now, he is inside Gambit's body. So there is only one option for this. He must die, because if he waits much longer, Apocalypse will take control of his body. And someone who knows this perfectly is Rogue, who is on a mission with her friends into the depths of the ocean to find a way to save the man she loves. The ship moves slowly through the vastness of the other vessel, and it enters inside through the tunnels until reaching a point where they can descend. There, we discover that this is the ship Apocalypse used, and in which they were just over 5,000 years ago, when he still had the body of a man. Beast reboots the ship's motherboard, and she welcomes them, so now they just need to ask her what they need, and perhaps get a clear answer. However, she tells them that Apocalypse was forged by a celestial force. If they try to destroy him, they might anger beings that go beyond their comprehension. But since they are willing to pay the price, the ship shows them the Celestial Temple, the place where Unsaba-Nur entered and emerged as Apocalypse, a sacrifice Rogue is willing to make, as long as she can save Gambit. As she approaches the Power Stone, her skin begins to tear apart, and the scene immediately shifts to Gambit, whose vital signs are fluctuating. But that's not all. A massive ship approaches the building, and inside it comes Cooper, who has several demands they must fulfill if they want to avoid a conflict. Cooper makes it clear that she is aware of the great threat kept behind their doors, and although Charles tries to tell her that it is currently contained, she doesn't plan to leave the fate of the world in his hands, so the solution is very clear. Charles must hand over Gambit, and it must be done immediately, or Cooper will take him by force, including every X-Man who opposes this order. Since Charles is not willing to give in so easily, Cooper cuts communications, and, with Cable's help, they destroy the electromagnetic field. This allows the team to see that Cable is on that ship, and they are about to face X-Factor and X-Force. So it's time to kill two birds with one stone, but this won't be easy at all, as Cooper's ship is packed with Sentinels, and the X-Men already know very well how difficult it is to face those things. One by one, the Sentinels begin to activate, and a massive battle is about to break out. That is why the Professor has sent Polaris and Bishop to defend the infirmary, while the rest of the team faces Cooper, or at least makes an attempt to stop her. The battle starts quickly and is quite chaotic. Meanwhile, the Professor tries to use Cerebro to locate Rogue, but she is in a world far more complex than he could comprehend, and he has failed in his mission. It is here that we see her appear in a completely white space, but a second later, an image of one of the Celestials manifests. The first thing it tells her is that she does not belong here, nor does the gem on her chest. Moments later, Rogue sees how the gem of power, which Gambit took from the external, leaves her body and shatters into a million pieces. She tells it that she is here because she ran out of options. The man she loves was possessed by the monster they created, and she just wants a way to stop him. But the massive cosmic being simply tells her that life can only evolve at the expense of other lives, not through mercy. Apocalypse's existence is necessary, and if her friend cannot survive, the world will grow stronger through his loss. This is his purpose. Rogue becomes enraged and tries to attack the most powerful being we have seen, but with every strike she tries to land, her body continues to take damage, as if it were burning. And this being tells her that she cannot fight against the impossible, yet she still doesn't stop. Isan the Searcher becomes interested in Rogue's willingness to sacrifice her life out of the love she feels for this man, and he tells her that if she truly wants to stop Apocalypse, then she must sacrifice her life. He asks her if she is willing to take that risk. When she says yes, the gem that gave Apocalypse his power shatters into a million pieces, and they adhere to her body, granting her a new transformation. Outside, Beast and Nightcrawler have been waiting patiently, but the ship is sinking, and they need to get out of there. Luckily, Rogue emerges from the temple with a new appearance and a power she didn't have before. Her entire body has been empowered by celestial energy, and now she has the strength to stop Apocalypse, although she lacks the courage to tell her friends that her life will be lost in this final battle. That was the deal Isan the Searcher offered her. Back at the X-Corp building, the battle continues, and the heroes find themselves vastly outnumbered, as the mechs are giving them a lot of trouble. Furthermore, X-Factor has found a way to enter the building and breach the force field, so Storm has no other choice. She must use a massive amount of her power. She summons a gigantic whirlwind, like a storm of lightning, allowing her to destroy many Sentinels. But Cooper has many more ready for launch. When the building's force field finally collapses, Cooper gives Cable the order to act. It is time for him to deliver the finishing blow to Apocalypse, so he leaps from the deck carrying a massive weapon in his hands, firing a relentless wave of energy at the building, blasting through the roof. The shot is so devastating that it melts the floor, allowing Cable to drop through the levels directly into the infirmary. However, his parents are there, and although Cyclops knows that attacking his son wouldn't be a good idea, he is prepared to do so. Jean tries to appeal to her son's good side, telling him that they can not only stop Apocalypse, but also save Gambit. yet. He just needs to give them some time, as they are looking for a solution. But even though Cable hesitates for a second, his destiny has always been this moment, and even they helped shape him into who he is now, so he is not willing to back down, not after watching Apocalypse murder billions of people while they weren't there to witness it all. Our anti-hero raises his weapon and prepares to shoot his parents, but Cyclops fires first, and Cable has no choice but to defend himself using his own arms to withstand the blast. At the same time, on another side of the ship, Logan is tracking some intruders. Using his sense of smell, he manages to find Psylocke and engages in a battle against her and Archangel. But just when they thought they had Logan cornered, it turns out to be Morph, and the real Logan attacks them from behind, taking Psylocke by surprise and nearly knocking her out, though she uses her psychic copies to confuse him for a few seconds. However, despite her running her power through his skull, Logan has long known how to respond to these kinds of attacks. As time passes and the battle intensifies, we can see that the monitor connected to Gambit starts malfunctioning, as a battle is also being waged inside his mind. The battle that will decide whether his body still belongs to him or will be surrendered to Apocalypse. Outside, Jubilee steals the X-Men's ship to try to defend them, but Havoc appears in a very similar one, and now she must face him in aerial combat to pay him back for all the injustices he inflicted on her when she was his prisoner. Havoc unleashes a hail of shots against the girl, and although he only tries to destabilize her and disable her ship, Jubilee responds with impressive maneuvers, firing flares at just the right moment and successfully dodging the missiles. But this isn't over. Havoc starts targeting her engines, and she only has seconds before they manage to shoot her down. On the control panel, Jubilee sees the missile closing in, leaving her with no choice but to hit the ejection button and unleash a massive blast of pyrotechnic heat at Havoc, causing his own missile to curve back toward him, forcing him to use his power through the glass to destroy it. Although this saves his life, it severely damages his ship, meaning Jubilee has won this fight and proven to him that she is no longer a foolish child. On the other hand, the rest of X-Factor has finally reached the infirmary, where they discover that the only ones there to stop them are Bishop and Polaris. Outnumbered 4-2, they stand little chance, and Polaris is eventually subdued. The surprise comes when, as she suffers immense pain, a card appears and pins itself to the floor, giving her a split second to cover herself with a shield before it detonates. It sends a massive energy blast down the entire corridor, and when the smoke clears, we see Gambit standing ready to face them. Thanks to his help, the battle stabilizes, and X-Factor ends up defeated. This causes Cooper to lose her patience and order Cable to act immediately, since Gambit's mind won't contain Apocalypse forever, and it is time for him to fulfill his destiny. But Cable is quite busy, as his parents have joined forces to stop him, and it's not easy to defeat the people who taught him almost everything he knows. Fortunately, Cable's hard past has taught him a few tricks that serve him now, and using his power, he manages to snatch his father's visor. Now Cyclops cannot attack him without risking harm to his wife and everyone else. After charging his fist with all his power for a couple of seconds, Cable strikes the floor, unleashing a massive energy explosion that impacts much of the building, including its foundations. What used to be the X-Men's offices is now just a pile of rubble, and Cable appears at the exact right moment to attack Polaris and take her out long enough to murder Gambit. Although the Professor exits Cerebro a second before, he lacks the ability to enter Cable's mind and alter his actions. So Cable simply raises his weapon, aims at Gambit's head, and doesn't hesitate for a single second before pulling the trigger. Through the cameras, Cooper can see that they succeeded in their mission, or so it seems, because once Gambit dies, an enormous power erupts from his body, and Apocalypse's eyes can be seen after all. On the monitor, Cooper sees that the celestial energy levels have crossed 100%, and Gambit's body floats into the air, revealing a much darker version of him, one completely taken over by Apocalypse. Now, all the mutants who were fighting minutes ago must unite to face a new enemy, a fused version of Apocalypse and Gambit wielding a massive scythe of dark energy, planning to kill them all. With a single strike of his scythe, the new Apocalypse defeats everyone present, and Cable cannot believe his mission failed. That instead of fixing everything, he ended up unleashing a far worse power, and that's not all. The dark energy surging from the scythe enters everyone's bodies and takes control of them, so now they are no longer Charles's X-Men, but Apocalypse's A-Men. Each of the professor's beloved students can no longer hear him because they serve a much greater power, a power he will not be able to stop, and it is time for him to accept defeat. However, backed into a corner, the professor still stands firm and tells him he won't win, not while there are still good people willing to fight against evil. And this is where Rogue appears. Her landing releases a massive cloud of energy that frees all her friends from the trance. In her new form and with her new power, she pauses for just a second to take off her gloves, and Apocalypse knows she is different, yet there is nothing he can do to stop her. Rogue lunges at him and places her hand on his face, successfully extracting all the evil and trapping it in her hands. A second later, she begins compressing it with all her strength, triggering a massive battle of energy that concludes with a blinding white halo consuming everything. At the end of this, we see a gem in her hands containing the face of Apocalypse, revealing that she has managed to contain him. She then places the gem in Cable's hands, as he is the person who fought hardest for this moment and surely knows exactly what to do with it, so it can never harm anyone again. Before Cable can thank her, Gambit's voice calls her attention. He was certain she would come to rescue him, and they join in a kiss. As this happens, the celestial power leaves her body, having fulfilled its purpose. It is at this moment that Rogue realizes she doesn't have much time to say goodbye, as she made a deal and her sacrifice is imminent. However, a second later, Beast lands, and we see that he holds Nightcrawler's Bible in his hands. The young man entered the temple and offered his life in exchange for Rogue's, hoping this sacrifice would serve as a seed to nourish everyone, so they know that good can always be done. Nightcrawler's final words express his hope that with his end, the world can become much better and that his friends will cherish every day as a blessing. As he fades away, we see scenes of a happy world where the X-Men learn together and protect one another. The episode and season come to an end with happy imagery, but with the certainty that Nightcrawler will not return, as he chose to sacrifice his life for a greater good, allowing Rogue to reunite with Gambit and giving all his brothers a new chance to start over. In a post-credits scene, we see that Graydon Creed has won the country's presidency, and his anti-mutant agenda is more powerful than ever. After that, in Cooper's office, someone identical to her decides to steal her files, and when Cooper opens the door, she is shot in the abdomen, revealing the intruder to be Mystique, who has launched her war against humans and raises her weapon to execute Val Cooper. With the gunshot that ends the life of X-Factor's leader, the scene fades to black.